Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Murder Church. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Getting ready to come through. I believe, possibly, this could be the last week of this trial that we're on currently. Joel Michael Guy Jr. Parents dismemberment trial. Been an absolute wild one. Like I said, this could be the last week. Also, trigger warnings on this one. This one's been fucking wild, but we'll see what happens. Thanks, guys. Happy Sunday. Let's go. Good morning, Murder Church. What is up? Thanks for being in here. I appreciate it. Everybody coming through bright and early. Struggling. I'm on the struggle bus. I stayed up again way too late. I worked my ass off yesterday. I was working on a video for another channel, and I got a lot accomplished. I probably put in 8 hours of editing time yesterday. An actual work day back here. But after the fact, I got off. I wanted to watch a little something, so I stayed up kind of late. What is up? Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming in here. I believe this could be the last week of this trial, and if it is, we're going to be going into this Friday looking for a new trial. And if you guys remembered the tournament that we had last time live to discover and find out, and you guys chose what the next one will be, we'll probably be doing something along those lines again. That was really fun. So, but yeah, this could be it. I'm going to look through the chat here. What is happening? What is up, everybody? Salvatore Dali coming through here. What's up, brother? Jessica for Justice, Queen Olive coming through, Sheila Duffy, Jersey Jen in the house, Hello Spring, Cammy Q, Gabby, what's up? Love to see the new names in here also. Pokemon, of course. Good morning, good morning. Yeah, that's right, 7 months in the house. That's what I'm talking about. Let's fucking go. She already knows, baby. She already knows. She already knows.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you. Hell yeah, Murder Church on the air. That's what I'm talking about. Dizzy, hanging and banging this morning. That's what I like to see, guys. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it. Debbie's hanging out too. Disney Nerd, still seeing some new names. Defense Attorney Meow. Wow, we got a full house this morning. What is up? What is up? We ain't messing around. We are not messing around. We fell into an insane trial by complete mistake, and it's been a doozy. We went through season 1, Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay, absolute madness. Madness of a case. It's a world famous, one of the most world famous, insane true crime stories of all time. Somehow, Joel Michael Guy Jr. got damn close to being as grotesque as that trial. I mean, you know, I'd imagine some of the imagery, and if you could get, because in the Jeffrey Dahmer trial, you didn't see a lot. They weren't just showing pictures and stuff. A lot of and that's really what I'm getting at, not the overall effects. It's hard to actually compare the two with actual victims and even the style of murders and everything that comes with it. But the actual trials, the being inside of the trials and watching them weekly here on Murder Church, this one was pretty graphic. We've seen some pretty barbaric stuff from the walkthrough with the body cam footage, from the videos that they would show. So I was pretty blown away by this one. And again, this is a newer one. 2020 is when the trial happened. 2016 is when the murders happened. So I don't know. The newest one we've done, we got out of the 90s, done 2 in the 90s. Dr. Jack Kevorkian was season 2. But what will be season 4, guys? What are we going to be doing? You got to stay tuned to find that out and figure that out. But we're going to get into this thing here. I've got my coffee with me. I'm ready to rock and roll. Hope Ain't Fear just popped through the door. What is up? Good morning. Good morning. And it is, Gabby. This case is a bonkers. It's freaking bonkers. Carrie coming through here also. Good morning, everybody. Partitioners, welcome. First of all, anybody that's new here or doesn't know, we start off Murder Church with ringing the bells, the church bells, baby. I know Viv likes to hear those things.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
Welcome here. Thank you all so much. Hit that like. Give it a share. Do all the things YouTube likes to do. We're also live over on X. We'll see how that one does as well. I think this is the first Murder Church live on X. See how she does. And yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. I cannot say how thankful I am for everybody hanging and banging on all the lives. But yeah, we got a couple more watching on X too. That's what I like to see. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, folks. We're about to get into the son of a bitch. We're going to keep rocking and rolling, and we'll see how far we get. See if we can finish this thing up today. Make sure I get the sound correct. Boom, boom, boom.
All right, Mr. Stevens or Mr. Halstead, is there a motion from the defense?
Yes, there is, Your Honor. We would move for a judgment of acquittal, alleging that the proof is insufficient to prove that it was Joel Guy who had committed these crimes, specifically as to counts 4 and 5, charging felony murder during the perpetration of a...
This guy's done nothing the entire time. They said nothing. He's done anything because he couldn't. He can't hardly do anything because of what is the evidence and what's blatantly in front of you. And he stands up and he says, "We're looking for an acquittal. We don't think that they've proven anything here." What?
It looks like the only thing that they're alleging is that perhaps he had made credit card transactions. Even the evidence on that wasn't very strong. But that he had made credit card transactions. That is not a theft. That is fraudulent use of a credit card. So the way that he is indicted, we believe, is insufficient to prove felony murder by theft, counts 4 and 5. Counts 6 and 7, abuse of a corpse, the state has not met their burden that this was without legal privilege. They have not shown what the legal standards are or that this was in violation of those. So we believe that they have not met their burden on count 6 and 7.
Thank you, sir. General, your response as to...
With respect to the felony murder counts, we believe that it is properly charged, Your Honor. Please, I would further point out that the property of Joel and Lisa Guy was found in the defendant's, the room where he was
I'm glad everyone else's reaction was the same as mine.
And other articles. So that's all I have to say on that point. With respect to the abuse of corpse argument, I just,
She just can't.
absolutely
I can't
disagree
right
with
now
Mr.
is what she wants
Halstead's
to say.
characterization of the state's proof on that.
All right, thank you. All right, when the defense makes a motion for judgment of acquittal under Rule 29 of the Tennessee Rules of Criminal Procedure, the court has to look at the evidence that has been presented up to that point in the light most favorable to the state and draw any rational and reasonable inferences in favor of the state's theory of the case. If after doing so, the court cannot determine that the state has met its burden and shown that each element has been proven from the evidence presented, then the court would enter a judgment of acquittal as to that particular count or counts. In this particular indictment, we have 2 counts of first-degree murder, counts 1 and 2. The issue that the defense has argued is the identity of the defendant as a person who has committed those offenses. I don't need to recite all the evidence has been presented, but there's certainly been very significant amount pointing to the defendant as the person who perpetrated these offenses, including his blood and DNA left on the weapons that were there at the scene where the bodies received sharp force injuries. There's a lot more circumstantial evidence than just that, but I think that's sufficient alone to get past the judgment of acquittal, and so I'm not going to summarize everything else, but we'll just leave it at that. Regarding the felony murder counts having to do with allegations of theft, there is circumstantial evidence of property belonging to Joel Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy. Being in that room, that's not the strongest argument. I also think that the use of funds to make purchases on their credit cards. That could be fraudulent use of a credit card. It can also be theft. It would qualify under the elements of theft as well, I believe. And so not only the credit cards, but other property.
It was a story I was writing. I can't write a screenplay. I'm not allowed to have any become a writer. I'm not allowed to do anything. I hate this place.
I think gets past the judgment of acquittal motion. As to abuse of corpse, the showing whether or not there's a legal standard, the court will instruct the jury regarding the elements of the offense, and I don't know that the state has to prove something that I think kind of comes with common sense, and that is a general member of the public cannot just dismember bodies in a community.
You just can't do that.
To me, that's not really
That's
an issue.
one line too far.
I guess there could be proof, even though the defendant has no burden of proof, that he did have some legal privilege to do this, but I don't think that the state has to bring forward proof showing that Mr. Guy is not a mortician or was working any type of duties pursuant to state statute. So I do think the state has met its burden at this point and will deny the motion for judgment acquittal as to all 7 counts. All right, we do have a 608 notice that's been filed. There's no 609. There's no prior convictions. The state is seeking to impeach Mr. Guy should he testify. I have reviewed the 608 notice regarding specific instances of conduct. I'm going to go through those real quick and give you my ruling before we do Momen. The first one is the state would like to cross-examine the defendant should he choose to testify that on November 28, 2016, he sought treatment at LSU Student Health Center for cuts on his hands. The medical record indicates the defendant reported he was injured when he tumbled down 3 steps.
This is outside of the presence of the jury, too. I'm pretty sure I didn't read the beginning here. Outside the presence of the jury, the judge and counsel discussed motions and charges ahead of closing arguments. So we're right
Sunday,
there.
And they've attached a copy from the suppression hearing. And then at the hearing on the motion to suppress, he agreed to stipulate that his hands were injured in an altercation with both parents. I don't think that really is a 608 matter, but I do think the state can inquire of the defendant if he were to testify differently to any of these things about what he had said in the past
I like this
as a prior
judge.
inconsistent statement. So I don't think at this point I'm going to consider that proper 608B3, but I certainly suspect if he does testify, the state will be able to,
pretty on point, pretty spot on.
If he explains the injuries to his hands in some other way, then these could be used as prior inconsistent statement to impeach him at that point under 613, not 608B3. Number 2, the defendant was deceitful on intake when he characterized himself as a graduate professional degree student when he was in fact not enrolled in a graduate degree program. I do think that the state can, if they can show that is a specific instance of conduct where he's demonstrating deceitful behavior. I do think that his testimony, his credibility as a witness, should he choose to testify, would be highly relevant. And any incident where he's lying about his status around this time would be highly relevant to that credibility. And I do think that the probative value on that issue would outweigh any danger of unfair prejudice. So I would allow the state to inquire on number 2. Number 3, the defendant was untruthful when he testified at the suppression hearing that he was completely dependent on the LSU Student Health Care Center for medical records. Again, I don't think that comes in under 608B3, but it is a proper avenue for cross-examination, and should he give a different answer, then I think that would open that testimony up to confrontation under 613 as a prior inconsistent statement. And lastly, the defendant was untruthful to Michael McCracken when he lied about his mother's occupation and status as a graduate student. I certainly think the state can ask him if in fact he told Mr. McCracken that his mom was an optometrist. So I'm not 100% sure that's 608B3, but if it is, I think it does. The probative value regarding his credibility does outweigh any danger of unfair prejudice. And so I think 2 and 3 are proper to inquire upon. 1 and 4, the areas are proper to inquire upon, but the actual statements at the suppression hearing, and I think they're both suppression hearing, will only be opened up should he give a different answer. Then it would be potentially 613 statement for prior inconsistent statement. All right, so that's what I'm going to rule on that. Mr. Guy, what I want to do now is talk to you about your right to testify. I'm going to swear you in. You're going to remain seated there at the table. Your lawyer is going to ask you a few questions. Just make it clear on the record that you know this decision is completely yours. So if you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. All right, Mr. Halstead.
Mr. Guy, have we spoken?
So his testimony is not in front of the jury, and he just sits at his table and does it?
To you about your right to testify. Yes. Have we discussed the pros and cons of that?
Yes.
Have we given you our opinion?
Yes.
Do you need any additional time to think about your decision?
No.
Do you feel like you've been given enough advice from us and your own thing?
I think that's what he was saying. You know what? We're actually going to break protocol here. And I don't even want the jury in the room just in case he gets a little too close to somebody. You can stay seated right there, sir.
Yes.
I'm not even going to move the chat. Just block this dumb face.
Yes.
And what is that?
All right, and you do understand if you wanted to, regardless of what your attorneys advise you, that you certainly could. That decision is completely yours. You understand that, Mr. Guy?
Yes.
And so it's your decision after being informed and discussing this with your attorneys to not testify in this case. Is that correct? All right, thank you, sir. All right, we also have a stipulation that I think we need to enter during the defense proof. Do we have any other proof, Mr. Halstead?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so what I would suggest we do is go ahead and have our instruction conference, then take a 30-minute break. When we come back, we'll do the defense proof through the stipulation and jump straight into closing arguments. All right. So let's take a look at instructions. I've emailed you one draft. I've been working on them this morning in a little bit more detail. And I'll send this to you in just a moment. All right, so the introduction is the same in every case. I want to skip to the first and second counts. I've put counts 1 and 2 together for first degree premeditated murder. The only difference between these is that the alleged victim in count 1 is Joel M. Guy Sr., and as to count 2, it's Lisa Guy. We do have the definition that applies specifically to intentionally and first degree murder here with element 2. The act was premeditated, and then the definition of premeditated. So any questions about counts 1 and 2?
Yo, City Kitty.
Counts 3, 4, and 5 I've separated just so it's not too confusing. Count 3 is first degree felony murder during first degree premeditated murder. This is the alleged victim's Miss Guy. The killing was committed in the perpetration of first degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. and was closely connected to that homicide, and the defendant intended to commit the alleged first degree murder. And so here I tell the jury regarding the first degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr., they're to look back at count 1. Again, the definition of intent refers back to count 1. Considerations of factors such as time, place, causation are helpful in determining whether it was in the course of the first degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy. And then lastly, there's the definition of intended. All right, so any questions on count 3?
No. There you are.
Counts 4 and 5 I've put together. They are felony murder for theft. Again, I've actually changed the wording a little bit. It's still first degree felony murder, but actually we know that theft doesn't have to be over $1,000 to be felony murder. So I've changed it, instead of saying the perpetration of felony, perpetration of theft. And then we define theft below here. So any questions on counts 4 and 5? All right. And counts 1 through 5 have the exact same lesser includeds, just 2 different victims. So we've got the order of consideration instruction. Then I have second degree murder first, Counts 1 and 4, the alleged victim is Mr. Guy. Counts 2, 3, and 5 is Miss Guy. Then I've defined knowingly for second-degree murder here, and then we've added the language, the distinction between voluntary manslaughter and second-degree murder with the second-degree murder instruction. Any questions on first, lesser, or second-degree murder? Yes. Yes. All right. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Harwell.
We believe that when the order of consideration instruction does not allow the jury to actually consider the voluntary manslaughter without first ruling on second-degree murder. And also, we believe instruction should be that state of passion is a defense to second-degree murder rather than an element of voluntary manslaughter.
All right. Thank you, sir. Yeah, this is a legal issue that has been litigated for years, and still in the course of that, I'm going to show that the defense objects, as Mr. Harwell just outlined. I think this is the appropriate way to instruct it. I don't think it's a perfect answer, but I think it's the best that we can come up with at this point. So I'm going to overrule the objection, leave it the way it is. Next, I've got voluntary manslaughter. Again, the difference in counts 1 and 4, the alleged victim is Mr. Guy, and 2, 3, and 5 is Miss Guy. And then reckless homicide is next, with the definition of recklessly for reckless homicide there. And lastly, I have criminally negligent homicide with the definition of criminal negligence. So any questions at all regarding the lesser included offenses? All right. So now we turn to count 6 and 7. The only difference between these two counts is which person we're talking about. Count 6, it's Mr. Guy. Count 7 is Miss Guy. Everything else stays the same. And then we have the definition of ordinary person. And then knowingly is defined in definitions. And there's no lessers for abusive corpse. All right, any questions on count 6 and 7? All right, definitions. I've added the general knowingly here because we have theft as an underlying offense for felony murder. So this will apply to that. Intentionally also would go to that. We have obtain, having to do with the theft, exercise control over property and owner, all having to do with theft, effective consent and deprive. Every other definition's been included in the particular account. So any questions on the definition sections? Expert witnesses, I have Brad Park and Tom Finch as latent print examiners, Kim Lowe, serology and DNA analysis, Dr. Amy Halls in forensic pathology, and Dr. Marks in forensic anthropology. Any questions on experts? Next, I do have flight in here. This is the pattern flight instruction. Any questions or objections on flight? Okay.
It is true that Mr. Guy was not at the scene, but that doesn't mean that he had fled the scene. There was no proof as to that other than the fact that he wasn't there, that he had traveled back through Mississippi at one point, but there was no evidence that the scene had been discovered or that there was anything of that nature. So we do not believe that there's sufficient evidence of a flight.
All right, thank you.
Also, the record needs to reflect he went to his house. He was arrested at his house, so he wasn't, besides leaving the scene, there also has to be, a hiding out, a concealment within the community, leaving for parts unknown. The only way they found him was the only way you can find him, go to his house, and he was there. So we don't think flight is appropriate here.
All right. I say this every time when flight gets challenged. I think this is the best written instruction that we have in the pattern. And no, I didn't write it. But it's very clear to the jury explaining what flight is and what it isn't. And it also tells them that there can be completely innocent reasons for taking flight. And so I think it's not harmful at all, depending upon the circumstances of the case. I do think flight has been fairly raised by the evidence in this case. It's clear that the defendant was here in Knoxville at the time that these, or at least around the time that these offenses occurred, and then left. We have travel in the middle of the night. And I understand Mr. Stevens' point that there's not strong proof about an evasion or hiding out, because it takes both a leaving the scene of difficulty and a subsequent hiding out. But he did leave several states away, and I know he was arrested outside of his apartment, but I still think there's enough evidence here that the juror could believe that he was fleeing the scene to avoid being captured there with the bodies. In light of the fact that there was an attempt to destroy these bodies and destroy the evidence, I certainly think flight goes hand in hand with that. So I'm going to overrule the objection and leave flight in there. Destruction of evidence, the state has requested that. Any objection to the inference on destruction of evidence?
Okay, just one moment.
Yeah, take it down.
Your Honor, we object to the records to that instruction. I don't know that that is, it may logically be correct that a jury could infer that. There's certainly no reason for the court to be highlighting that or any statute or law requiring that be given. That's just something they will probably be thinking about, but I don't know we need an instruction on it.
Yeah, a lot of these inference instructions usually kind of go hand in hand with sort of common sense, and they're actually put in there because there are issues that frequently come up in criminal cases. And I think jurors sometimes struggle
Common
with,
sense.
well, is that something we consider or not consider?
We don't see a lot of that in true
I agree
crime
with you,
work.
Mr. Harwell, on a lot that, it really just kind of explains logic, but I think it's appropriate to go ahead and include it because I do think that the evidence that has been presented fairly raises the issue on whether or not there was an attempt to destroy evidence. We've got a notebook that pretty much says that there was an attempt to destroy evidence, so I certainly think the facts warrant it. Next, I've included the general identity pattern instruction. I want to point out something on this because I've made some changes, the changes that I always make in this case, because this instruction is required to be given anytime identity is an issue in the case, as it is in this case. And the problem that I have with it is it just focuses on identification testimony.
Problem that I have with identifying this human being is that he's a fucking alien trying to escape out of this human meat suit.
Probably more times than not, we don't really have identification testimony, and that's the case here. We don't have an issue on identification testimony because we don't have any eyewitnesses to the crime. So I've slightly changed the wording in this, and here's what I've added. So if you look at where it says the state has a burden of proving identity beyond reasonable doubt, I've added this sentence: proof of identity may include identification testimony. And then I go right into the pattern. Because without that sentence, I think the jury is just thinking, where's the witness who's identifying who committed the acts? And so the second paragraph, or after the questions, the second paragraph, I've changed it a little bit as well too. The first sentence I think is all the same, but this last sentence I've changed. I said, if after considering all the proof in the case, including any identification testimony, you have reasonable doubt the defendant is the person committing the crimes, you must find the defendant not guilty. So it's not terribly different than the pattern instruction, but I try to word it in a way that it does include language to allow the jury to look at something beyond identification testimony to prove identity. So any questions or objections to the identity instruction? No. All right. Prior statement of the defendant, we do have the call. I don't think it qualifies as an admission against interest, so I've just used the general prior statement of the defendant instruction. We've heard fingerprint evidence. I put the pattern fingerprint evidence instruction in there. There's an extra period.
Your Honor, just clarifying the admission against interest.
Okay.
Defendants to argue in closing a portion of that call. Mr. Guy asked Mr. McCracken, tell me what, based to the something like, why did I do this?
Now look at his face right there. How did I get here? What is he thinking right now? What is in this dude's fucking head right now? Like, he's shown no emotion during this entire thing, except when his potential boyfriend that he lived with hung out for a second. Like, what the fuck, man? This guy lived for 27, 28 years. I forget his exact age, but it was one of those. Like, I couldn't imagine being this guy's neighbor, seeing this dude out and about. I would immediately be throwing red flags all over the place. The guy that lived with him. What? I want to talk to that guy a little bit more.
Idiot. So we would.
You didn't see anything? You didn't notice anything? This guy didn't seem a little off to you?
I understand your point, General, but what Mr. Guy, in the context of what he was saying saying to Mr. McCracken, these are questions that I'd be asking for you. Why aren't you, this is what you might be wanting to know. So I don't really think that, I'm going to let you argue that. I'm not going to tell you can't argue it, but I don't think it rises to the level that I should instruct on admissions against interest. What does the defense think on that? Do you want the admissions against interest instruction or just this general statement instruction?
Just the general.
All right, I'm going to stick with that.
As long as we can argue it.
Yeah, I'll let you argue it. I mean, it's subject to different interpretations. I mean, that's part
Yeah,
of
that's
why
pretty
I
much
let
what he
that
just
part of the
said.
call in.
I mean, you can argue it. You can say whatever the fuck you want.
And the rest of
Basically,
this is all the stuff that we always put in here. Admissibility of evidence,
necessarily.
statements of attorneys, statements of the court, presumption of innocence, state's burden, I've defined reasonable doubt, taking notes, and
like in one of these, it's so easy to get caught up in like, yeah, we know what the fuck's happening here. We know that he's guilty, but they still have to go through all these motions, right? They have to do it properly. Like, you have to make sure this motherfucker can't get some kind of appeal and get out from some kind of technicality. Like, it makes sense, really and truly. But at the end of the day, we're watching, we're like, what's happening? This dude is guilty.
this is the instruction telling them they have to decide what the proof shows, what they may consider. If we have any prior inconsistent statements, we'll take out testifying. I assume the defense does want the instruction on not testifying.
Yes.
All right. And then we have circumstantial and direct evidence instruction, unanimous verdict instruction, and don't talk to anybody about it instruction. And that's it. Any questions on the proposed jury instructions from the state? Anything else from the defense?
No, you don't.
All right. At the end of those, you will find the verdict forms. I've gone through these 3 or 4 times. You may want to go through them yourself because it's ones I always seem to make a mistake on. But we've got the first count, first degree premeditated murder with Mr. Guy, and then all the options for lessers and not guilty. Count 2, first degree premeditated murder with Lisa Guy. Count 3 is first degree felony murder during the perpetration, first degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. with the victim's name there. Count 4, theft for Mr. Guy. 5, theft for Miss Guy. 6 is abuse of corpus Mr. Guy, no lessers. And lastly, 7, abuse of corpus for Lisa Guy. All right, are the instructions acceptable at this point for everybody? All right, I will, Mr. Halstead, you good with these?
They're accepted.
All right, I will go print these out. I will email them to you as well, too. It is now 10:48. I think it's too early to eat lunch, so I'd like to go ahead and start closing. We may not finish. I doubt we'll finish before lunch, but let's at least get it started. So let's say 11, how long do y'all need, General?
30 minutes.
All right. All right, 11:20. Is that good for y'all?
Yeah.
All right, court stands in recess till 11:20. We'll hear defense proof and go into closing arguments. Court's in recess.
All right. What do we got next? Prosecution closing arguments. Here we go. Prosecution's going to have 1 hour and 15 for closing arguments, while the defense, I'm sure, will have 1 minute for closing arguments, and I might not even be joking. That may end up being real. So yeah, here we go. The opening for the state was pretty good, and we're gonna get to see the closing. Let's rock and roll. Again, I appreciate everyone for hanging and banging this morning. Thank y'all so much. Hanging out in Murder Church. This should again be the final episode of this season. I think we're gonna hit that just perfect. And yeah, we're gonna keep rocking and rolling. I'm gonna hit you with a stinger, and we're gonna keep rolling. Keep rolling, baby.
Play the call. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for that break. We're ready to
put it in this
continue
thing
with
and it
our
stays so
trial.
freaking hot for
As
so
you
long.
recall, when we last left off, the state had concluded its case in chief. Once again, the defendant has no burden of proof in this case, but he is given an opportunity to present evidence to witnesses and exhibits if he wishes to do so. So this is his opportunity. At this time, Mr. Halstead, Mr. Stevens, do you wish to present evidence on behalf of the defendant?
Just the stipulation of proof.
All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the parties have agreed to a stipulation, and what a stipulation is, it means they agree to certain facts, and I'm going to read the stipulation into the record. You can consider it as if it was testimony presented to you. The parties have agreed to stipulate to the following facts. On Tuesday, October 29, 2016, the defendant, Joel Guy, was arrested in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for the murders of his parents, Lisa and Joel Guy. He was booked into the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison on the same day. During the booking process, his fingerprints and palm prints were taken and entered into the APHIS automated fingerprint information system. Brad Park lifted a palm print and fingerprint
Lifted up a Parmesan cheese sandwich
from the crime scene
from
on
the
Golden
crime
View
scene.
Way
It was
in
just sitting
Knoxville,
there
Tennessee,
on the table.
and entered
The sick
that
son of a
unknown
bitch.
print into the APHIS system and received a list of possible matches, including the defendant, Joel Michael Guy. Joel Guy's prints were in the APHIS system because he had been arrested on this case prior to Brad Park's inquiry. Joel Guy has no prior criminal record, and that is the stipulation. Does the state so stipulate? All right, so we will enter that. Any further proof on behalf of the defense? All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this point you have received all the evidence that will be presented to you to decide this case. The next part of the trial will be the closing statements of the attorneys. As I told you at the beginning of our trial, statements of attorneys are not evidence. However, they can be very helpful to you in understanding the evidence that was presented, as well as my instructions of law that I will give you after their argument. So I do encourage you to listen very carefully to what the lawyers have to say. Once again, since the state has a burden, they get to go first. If the defense chooses to present a closing argument, the state will have a period of time for rebuttal after the defense argument. It is now 11:30, and I don't suspect we're going to get through all the arguments before lunch. So we're going to hear the beginning of the state's argument. At some point, I will interrupt them, and we'll break for lunch and come back and hear the rest of the arguments after lunch. But I'd like to go ahead and get started now. So, General Sanchez, you may present your closing argument.
He's like, can we get this shit over with?
I can do the can, or I can do these first row of LEDs. Want to try to do the first couple LEDs? Oh, I guess. Is that good enough, General? Is that too dark?
Prepare for the sun.
I can see everybody.
Also, are you planning on standing at the podium, or are you going to move around? Okay, very good.
Confine myself if I could.
I do have the lapel mark if you need it, General.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just start by echoing Mr. Halstead here, who said to you in the beginning, thank you for being here, especially during these unprecedented times in the middle of a global pandemic. We are thankful that you're here and you're fulfilling your civic duty to serve as jurors in this case. So on behalf of the state of Tennessee, thank you for being here. As you're aware, this is State of Tennessee versus Joel Michael Guy, Jr. He is charged with 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder for the murders of Lisa Guy and Joel Guy Sr., 3 counts of felony murder for the killing that is committed in the perpetration of the killing of Joel Guy Sr., and then for 2 felony murder counts for a killing perpetrated in the commission of thefts, 1 against Lisa Guy, 1 against Joel Guy Sr., as well as 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. As you know, there's a great deal of proof in this case, a lot of evidence to consider. The best way for me to stay organized is to present this in a PowerPoint. So chronologically, what we have here, ladies and gentlemen.
The picture was, I think, 1 or 2 days during the Thanksgiving get-together. before he killed his parents. Like, yeah, this guy feels nothing. This is one of the most soulless ones. He just sits there. I get he had feelings for the one dude. I guess I don't know if they're actually, I don't think they were. It seemed like they were both hiding it, but obviously together, living together. So like,
When is Thanksgiving weekend, 2016. We know based on text messages between Joel and his mother that he is leaving Baton Rouge on the 23rd November 2016. He is heading to the parents' address on 11434 Golden View Avenue here in Knox County. We know based on the testimony of Ms. Tyler, Michelle Tyler, the sister of Joel Michael Guy Jr., that the family gathered on Thanksgiving the 24th. We further heard testimony from Joel Guy Sr.'s sister that on the 25th, Joel Guy Jr. is present in Burgoynesville with his father, Joel Guy Sr., one day after Thanksgiving to assist him in bringing a boat to the property. We know based on the evidence that the homicides occurred between the hours of 12:30 and roughly 3 p.m. on November 26th, 2016. In all this time, ladies and gentlemen, there's a plan in place. Joel Guy took care to plan these homicides accordingly. He went into great detail in how he wrote it out. So his plan, as you'll see and as the proof is demonstrated, was to kill his father first, wait until his mother was at Walmart, wait for a window of time where he could lure her upstairs and kill her as well. He then planned to manipulate the scene, even up to starting a fire. He had a guide for hot water heaters in his backpack in the guest bedroom that he was staying in. He had a plan to destroy the evidence. If you recall, and you'll see pictures, several areas throughout the residence, there are either a hair dryer or a hair curler next to a heater. What's the motive here? We don't have the burden to prove the motive, but the motive's pretty apparent in this case, and the motive is the money. He wants $500,000 that he is the second in line to get if Lisa Guy untimely dies. So if we look at the timeline of the defendant's travel, we know from the Vigilant Solutions exhibits that were entered in this case that he is seen driving to Knoxville, Mississippi, on November 23rd, 2016 at roughly 1:30. We further saw receipts in his trunk from Lieutenant Scott Henning when he inventoried that trunk that he had stopped in Georgia to go to McDonald's on the 23rd. Again, that would show his route of travel on the 23rd. Next, we know that he leaves Knoxville and is in Meridian, Mississippi at 12:31 on 11/28/2016, that being Monday morning, early Monday morning. He's again spotted continuing south towards Louisiana, Baton Rouge to be specific, in Heidelberg, Mississippi at 1:05 a.m. So when we consider how the defendant, Joel Michael Guy Jr., became a suspect in this case, what the proof has shown is that upon the officer's initial response to the scene, they inventoried a horror scene, as they put it. You saw the proof, you saw the evidence of what
I would say it was a horror scene.
Inside that residence, you heard about interviews that Investigator McCord conducted with family members that put him on the path to establish that Joel Michael Guy Jr. was present for Thanksgiving and he was no longer there. We then heard about the receipt, the crucial piece of evidence that led investigators to follow up and to dig deeper into who the suspect was in this case. We saw the video transactions from Walmart identifying Joel Michael Guy Jr. We saw his license plate as he left. That was at roughly 3:35 p.m. on the 26th at Turkey Creek here in Knox County, Tennessee. We learned that his mother was there roughly 3 hours previously, purchasing a long list of groceries that we ultimately found in the foyer area. So Investigator Jeremy McCord, he's with the Knox County Sheriff's Office. He was serving at that time in the Major Crimes Division. He responded first to a welfare check.
This right here, he's like, this is the exact moment, right? Like, he wasn't expecting this. This was the moment that the cops got there so quickly because his mom didn't show up to work. Very unusual. I'm sure never does that, right? Always on time for work. So we're going to get a wellness check out there. The police came out and found a fucking horror show. A mess.
It is 11434
Say the least.
Golden View Lane.
That is the basis of the response to the residents originally. We heard from Detective Ballard about how he responded. Knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, went around back, whistled for a dog, again went to the door with no answer. Investigator McCord then received an additional call with more information about Lisa Guy supposed to be at a retirement party as this was her last working week before she moved to Burgoynesville. Some of the things he considered when he got to the residence. He found it odd that the house was for sale and there was no realtor box in the front door. He took that into consideration. He also took into consideration that both the vehicles that were registered to Lisa and Joel Guy Sr. were at the residence and no one was answering the door. He then moves around to the rear of the residence. He finds at the rear of the residence there's a back door with the doorknob absent, a hole instead. And upon investigating that hole in the door, he describes that he could smell chemicals and he could feel heat emitting from where that doorknob should have been. He further described that upon looking at the front door, the doorknob for the front door matched the deadbolt on the back. We saw that ultimately the investigator and accompanying officers were able to gain access into the garage. They were able to open one of the guy's vehicles and hit a garage door opener, which ultimately opened the garage. We heard about what he encountered once he opened that garage. He described that he could still feel heat, he could smell chemicals present in the garage. Ultimately, the officers make a decision based on what they've encountered to make an entry into that residence and conduct a welfare check inside of 11434 Golden View Lane on November the 28th, 2016.
Yes, trigger warning for
You recall
sure.
seeing the officers on the body camera with weapons drawn based on what they encountered outside. To make sure everyone is okay, they are processing the kitchen, or not processing, but kind of traversing through the varying rooms of the downstairs. At that point, Investigator McCord, if you recall, he said that nothing was really wrong there. There were some odd things I was considering, but nothing showed any signs of struggle. But it was concerning that there were groceries on the floor, the foyer. It was concerning that there were chemicals right when you came in the door. All that changes when they make entry into that stairwell.
Knox County Sheriff's Office! We're here to check your welfare!
And you recall when Investigator McCord testified about the kind of what he was perceiving at the time and how it made him feel based on what he encountered upon making it to the second floor of the residence at 11434 Golden View Lane. He stated, once we get upstairs, it's like the world does a 180. Everything gets turned upside down. He's initially seeing blood on the way up to the stairs, blood on the doggy gate, and then ultimately a horrific scene, which will later become apparent, the scene where Lisa Guy was executed and subsequently disarticulated. He said he could see straight down the hall and he saw hands not connected to a body. We also heard that from Officer Ballard, who experienced the same thing as well as the other deputies who responded on November 26th. With regard to finding the physical bodies, in these tubs right before you, ladies and gentlemen, these two tubs, he described that as being gut-wrenching, something he's never experienced before. all the crime scenes that he's responded to.
Yo, you're welcome in here, just a crazy Swifty Jen. If you were here Feral Friday, which you probably were not, and if you came over to the kick part, I opened that show with some Taylor Swift. We were jamming in here, baby. Welcome the hell in here.
Homicides that he worked. This one was different. He told us that he will never get those smells out of his head or his dreams. So when we talk about the charges with regard to this case, we'll start with the first-degree murder, counts 1 and 2 being the premeditated first-degree murders. Now the judge is going to instruct you as to what the state of Tennessee must prove to you, element-wise, beyond a reasonable doubt. We have 3 essential elements as it has to do with first-degree murder, premeditated first-degree murder, and those are, we have to prove that Joel Michael Guy unlawfully killed his father, Joel Michael Sr., and he unlawfully killed his mother, Lisa Guy, and that in doing so, he acted intentionally, and that the killing was premeditated. The judge will further instruct you as to what the legal definition of premeditation is, and I ask you to consider that premeditation in the legal
premeditation is making a notebook explaining in detail exactly what you're going to do to your parents, and then ending it with the $500,000 of insurance money that he would have collected would be all mine. Evil laugh. That's literally what he put in the fucking journal. Like he's an
exercise of
idiot.
reflection and judgment. It's
A
thinking
moron.
about things, what we're gonna do later on in the day, what we're gonna wear the next day for work. It's giving something some degree of thought. The legal definition for acting intentionally, ladies and gentlemen. A person acts intentionally when it's the person's conscious objective or desire to cause the death of the alleged victim. So we look at the instruments or the means on how these gruesome homicides were committed in this case. We know that there was at least 2 knives in the exercise room that were recovered, where Joel Guy Sr.'s hands were ultimately recovered. We know that there was further a knife next to the pile of clothes belonging to Lisa Guy. We know that there is a knife in the master bedroom sink. We know in the guest bathroom there is a United States Marine Corps K-bar knife. We know there's chemicals. We know there's other objects. And with regard to the $500,000, ladies and gentlemen, what this case is about in terms of motive, we know that there's a breakdown of beneficiaries where Joel Michael Guy Jr. is the contingent beneficiary, where Joel Sr. is the primary beneficiary on Lisa Guy's life insurance policy. And how do we know that Joel Michael Guy Jr. is aware of that? Well, first of all, we consider his notebook, his book of premeditation, where he identifies the valuation, the value, money, all mine, $500,000. He knows exactly what he's in line to receive if his mom were to die and if his dad were to die. When looking at that first-degree murder in terms of what we have to prove his identity, that Joel Michael Guy unlawfully killed, and so on and so forth. So with regard to identity, what you've seen, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen Joel Guy's written words. This book is connected to him through certain pieces of material, such as set her phone to send me a text message late Sunday to prove that I was in BR, being Baton Rouge, and she was, quote unquote, alive. We can prove his identity through his own spoken words, ladies and gentlemen. His admission of guilt as it relates to the homicides in this case.
Yeah, the jail calls were crazy.
Very, very realistic chance of being happy if I got around to doing that.
Tell me I'm an effing idiot. Ask me how I
So
could
glad
do
you're here,
this.
Jen.
Blah, blah, blah. Submit to you what you heard there was an admission of guilt by Joel Guy Jr.
Yeah, this dude's fucking crazy. Everybody hanging out here this morning, I appreciate the shit out of it. Thank you very much. Kaylin coming through saying she gave out a share on the old X. And appreciate that, man. There's a lot of folks right now currently watching on X. There's like over 300 folks in here. So if you are on X watching this currently, thanks for being here. But come over to YouTube and give us a follow sometime also. We do a lot of crazy content. And yeah, I want to take this opportunity to reach out to those folks and say, what the fuck's up? That's awesome. Love it. Hell yeah. Welcome in here.
We further prove his identity through fingerprints. You heard from Tom Finch and Brad Parks, who testified that they were on the scene at 11434 Golden View Lane on the 28th and after the crime scene was initially processed, and that's when they went about trying to lift latent fingerprints from within the residence. We also learned from the defendant's book of premeditation that he was trying to minimize his fingerprints when he was going to be there by the use of wearing socks and also gloves. It's apparent based on the photos that the defendant certainly wore gloves during the commission of the offense and after. We saw his palm print that was ultimately lifted from the left side of the guest sink next to the bag that had the Walmart receipt and the change from the medical supplies that he bought after he was injured in a struggle with Joel Guy Sr. And where that is, if you'll recall, in the bathroom here, the guest bathroom, there was a bunch of clothing here, a bloody shower curtain down here, various
I can't tell if that
items here in a
popping is in
bag.
my sound or if it's on here. I'm going to give it a fix anyways, just in case it's not.
Can here, a knife, a K-bar Marine Corps knife here, and a bunch of evidence that was analyzed through the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation over here. We saw the fingerprint, which was ultimately lifted and conclusively identified as that belonged to Joel Michael Guy Jr., the one on the left being the print from the scene, the one on the right being a standard. And they talked about, the experts, Mr. Finch and Parks, talked about the characteristics that they look for in peaks and arches when examining fingerprints and how they ultimately come to a conclusion that a given fingerprint was provided by a given source. And this fingerprint in the same bathroom is just on the other side of the sink. The Clorox package, that being in the guest bedroom in the closet area. Again, the print that was lifted, latent print that was lifted off that package. The left here being the print that was lifted, the right being the known standard of Joel Michael Guy Jr.'s print and how they were analyzed, and ultimately they concluded that Joel Michael Guy Jr. was the source of the print. The right middle finger print from the glove box. These are the nitrile gloves, ladies and gentlemen. These are the gloves that were not only downstairs in the kitchen, but also in the guest bedroom and also in the guest bathroom. And again, the same process was utilized in collecting all these prints, and they were ultimately able to determine that Joel Michael Guy Jr. was the source of the fingerprints.
Oh shit, got a gifted membership coming through here real quick by Hope Ain't Fear. Oh man, thank you very much, appreciate that. Yeah. Hell yeah, that's what we're talking about. Let's see who got that thing. Gian Daltrey. Daltrey is one of my favorite last names ever. That's like an old school like Western type, but at least you would hear that in like an old Western. Daltrey. That's the Daltreys. The Daltreys.
This is gun country.
You don't want to mess with the Daltreys.
I'm telling you like it is.
Welcome
baby.
in here, folks. Anytime we get new members, pass out the beers, pass out the probably nothings, pass out the liquor drinks. Thank you so much, Hope Ain't Fear. Appreciate that.
The right index finger from the medical tape. Medical tape that he purchased at Walmart after he was in a struggle with Joel Guy Sr. So how do we further prove his identity? We heard a great deal of testimony from Special Agent Kim Lowe at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation She talked to you about all the pieces of evidence that she examined, multiple pieces of evidence that contained not only Joel Michael Guy Jr.'s DNA, but also the DNA of his parents put together. But most troubling, we learned that the notebook, the book of premeditation here, we learned that the major contributor is consistent with Joel Guy Jr. And we learned, she talked about, even broke it into quadrillions, about the number of being incorrect in the analysis. The knife from the master bedroom sink, where the stew-like remains of Lisa Guy and Joel Guy Sr. were ultimately recovered.
Close picks on this.
Tubs, ladies and gentlemen, before you. The fingernail clippings of Joel Guy Sr.
I don't want to get too close to him. Taking the ear off.
We learned that there was the presence of Joel Guy Jr.'s DNA underneath the fingernail clippings, or on the fingernail clippings of Joel Guy Sr. Again, supporting there was a struggle, an attack. So after identity, I want to talk to you about premeditation and how this case, how the state has proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Joel Michael Guy Jr. acted with a great deal of premeditation in these cold, calculated homicides of his mother and father. There's two routes I want to travel with regard to premeditation. The first route is the purchase of supplies used in commission of the murders, okay? And I want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, the proof has showed us that this began 19 days before these homicides took place. He was buying things that he was planning to use in the commission of these offenses 19 days beforehand. Another avenue of premeditation is, of course, the notebook. We know that he wrote about the murders, what he was going to do. You've seen the pages, what supplies he needed, what order he needed to do things, what he was going to do with the bodies after they were deceased, what he was going to do with the residents after his plan was carried out. We know he purchased supplies in preparation. We saw multiple videos of him not only in Baton Rouge, but traveling up to 35 miles outside of Baton Rouge to purchase supplies. We heard that Dan Boudreaux, Ace Hardware, is roughly 35 miles from Baton Rouge proper. And he had to find a place that carried muriatic acid in food-grade hydrogen peroxide. Sewer cleaner, number 2. Again, what's this about? This is about a motivation to collect money, because his parents had had enough of supporting him, had never worked a day in his life, and they wanted to retire, and they deserved to retire. When we look at the supply purchases, again, we'll start with supplies that were purchased the farthest out in terms of days from when the homicides occurred. 19 days beforehand, this would be November the 7th of 2016. He purchased several supplies at 2 different locations. So again, if you look at the left, Mr. Joel Michael Guy Jr., who Jerry Coleman, task force officer at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was able to determine that he was on the video on the 7th of November purchasing. If you look to the right, this is the physical evidence that was seized at the crime scene. So we have Mr. Joel Michael Guy on the 7th purchasing muriatic acid. We further have Joel Michael Guy on the 7th purchasing what comes in these tied off bags, because it's so dangerous, to skin contact and its ability to be corrosive to skin, food grade hydrogen peroxide. If you see here, these are the big bags that are pre-tied. So those are just the purchases in Gonzales, again, which is roughly 35 miles outside of Baton Rouge on the 7th. But that's not it, ladies and gentlemen. The same day, Joel Michael Guy then goes to Lowe's. He purchases an Irwin pipe wrench. And we see at the crime scene in the master bathroom that the shower head has been taken off, that a hose has been applied to assist in his process of disarticulating his parents and ultimately putting them into an acidic-based fluid to dispose of their remains. He's also purchasing Clorox wipes, same wipes that contained his fingerprints, same wipes that are found in the guest bedroom at 11434 Golden View Lane. So let's jump down the road closer to when he commits these murders. He takes a break from 19, and now we're at 8 days. 8 days before the murders. He's thinking about it again. This is getting real. Am I going to do this? He goes to Home Depot, Louisiana, 11/18. And what's he buy at Home Depot? Home Depot brand extension cords, as well as a timer. And we saw what the timers were intended to do in his book of premeditation. They were going to be utilized to create a fire after the bodies had dissolved. He makes another transaction at Home Depot, just minutes apart. He must have forgot the commercial bleach sprayer. And as you see on the right, the crime scene, we have the bleach and the bleach sprayer. The very next day, he's still thinking about it. 7 days before the murders. 1 week before he's set to come into Knoxville to enjoy Thanksgiving with his family. He is at Academy Sports in Baton Rouge. He is purchasing what you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, is the K-bar weapon, the Marine Corps style knife that he used to murder his parents with. Again, when you consider that with the evidence on the crime scene. So 2 days have passed. He's now 5 days before the murders. And what's he doing? He's at Walmart. You saw that video where he struggled to have the machine take his bill. And what's he buying? He's buying at least one of these. The proof is shown in the video showed that he already had one. We saw him take the groceries and put them in the car and take a pre-existing bin, the same size, same color, same style, out and place one of those bins in there and put them both in. He bought his parents' tombs on the 21st. On to the next avenue of premeditation. I told you about the supply purchases, but also the book of premeditation. The same book that has his DNA on it. The same book that he identifies that he will go back to BR so his mom's phone can be programmed to set a text so she could be, in quote, alive. And what does this book do when you put it with the crime scene? Essentially, the writings, what they do is they corroborate everything that's on the crime scene. So everything he set out to do, he did. Get rid of the bodies inside of the house. Well, the proof is shown that he did that, ladies and gentlemen, or at least attempted to. Get carving knives to make small pieces. Get knives because they're quiet. Get multiple of them. And again, we found at least 5 knives
For real.
scattered around the upstairs of 11434 Golden View Lane here in Knox County. 5 knives that were used in the commission of these brutal murders. Get plastic sheeting for the disposal process. We saw the plastic sheeting in the master bathroom. Investigator McCord sure encountered that plastic sheeting when he made that awful discovery. The remainder of the plastic sheeting being on the guest bed that was neatly made. Get bleach denature proteins. Get plastic bin for denaturation process. Ladies and gentlemen, he had the supplies.
I mean, I don't
saw 'em buy the
understand 4
Marriott
days
gas
either.
and-
These people must have loved they had the best fucking lunches and dinners. They're like, we just
Turn heat up to 90 to melt fingerprints and dry everything.
Somebody's
Now, we
just
saw a lot
like,
of
I'm not
crime scene
sure.
pictures in this
I'm just
case,
not sure.
From different crime scene
We
technicians.
having lasagna today?
We
What
also
are we
saw
having?
video.
Has
So
anybody
upon
seen the
initial
menu?
entry, if you recall, the heat upstairs was at 95 degrees. And after initial entry, it starts to cool down a bit. It goes to 93. It goes to 90. We heard about everybody who went in that crime scene. The medical examiner, Investigator McCord, the initial responding officers. We heard from Officer Ballard about his reaction to that heat on his face, the smell of chemicals. Turn heater up as high as it goes to speed decomposition. Okay, well, we know what he wants to decompose. The disarticulated, the brutalized bodies of his parents that are in an acidic-based fluid in the master bathroom. We also see a fan and heater that we heard on the crime scene video was actively working when officers initially entered. Wear gloves and socks to prevent fingerprints and footprints. Well, what do we find in the guest bedroom? We find a bag with Hanes socks. What do we find strewn throughout the residence at 11434 Golden View Lane? Gloves to prevent fingerprints. We've seen the proof is corroborated that Joel Michael Guy Jr., after he killed his parents, based on their clothing with the incisions in the clothing, he then decided that and planned that he was going to remove their clothes and take them away. And he did that by the use of scissors that were located ultimately right next to the pile of blood where he executed his mother. And how's he going to go about disarticulating his parents? At least for his mother, turn on the hot water and point her to get rid of forensics. Remove her clothes and take them with me for disposal.
Couldn't imagine walking through there.
Get a sledgehammer to crush bones. And if you look below the crime scene in the master bedroom floor, with a bunch of other various items that he brought with him through his shopping, is a sledgehammer. We also know that there was a blender in the master bedroom on the floor, a base and the portion of the blender that holds the content. We know that when he was arrested in Louisiana, that in his trunk, not only was there a gas can that exactly matched the other 3 at the residence, but there was a commercial meat grinder. So he did what he wanted to do. Place hair curler with flammable paper and flammable containers of gasoline in 4 locations. So that tells us that Joel Michael Guy Jr. brought 4 gas cans. And if you recall, ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing one up to enter it into evidence. It's full. They're full of gas. And looking into that entry deeper, place hair curler with flammable paper and flammable containers. We have a hair curler plugged in. We have a hair dryer plugged in. Both next to heaters. He wasn't done, ladies and gentlemen. He was not done. He left because his plan was
I
disrupted.
learned that
when
word
Joel Guy Sr.
thanks to this
attempted
trial.
to fight for his life.
Okay, I expanded my vocabulary. Thank you, Joel.
timer for flammables set for Friday at 10 a.m. Talks about how sunlight can mask fire, but not smoke. And the fact that everyone will be at work, they won't be able to report it. And we find on the scene, ladies and gentlemen, as well as we see in the video from Home Depot, he's buying a heavy-duty timer. Get rid of the blood in the crime scene. He knows there's going to be blood. He plans to attack his parents with knives. He knows there's going to be blood. Use peroxide and bleach. The peroxide has the ability to work against hemoglobin, a component of human blood, and the bleach has the ability to diminish the presence of DNA. And what do we find on the scene? Hydrogen peroxide, bleach, plenty of bleach. Bleach reacts with luminol, just like blood. Douse the area with bleach. And how does he plan to do that? With this commercial bleach sprayer that we watched him purchase from Home Depot on the 18th of November, 2016, 8 days before he carried out these homicides. And what does he do after this? Bleach by itself isn't going to work. What do we need? What we learned from investigator Wassman, that a search was conducted on the artifacts of the home computer on the 27th. We submit to you that the proof is shown that Joel Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy were murdered.
Good morning, Wildside. What's up?
On the 26th.
Welcome in here.
Leaves Joel Guy in the residence on the 27th. We know he leaves the late hours of the 27th into the 28th. There's a search on the 27th at 8:05 a.m. looking for sodium percarbonate, and the investigator told us that that is OxyClean. So with regard to first-degree premeditated murder, we've showed you, ladies and gentlemen, beyond a reasonable doubt, the identity of the killer, Joel Michael Guy Jr. We have showed you that he acted with premeditation, and we must also establish that he intentionally killed Lisa Guy, his mother, and Joel Guy Sr., his father. So with regard to Joel Guy Sr., we know that he was executed in the exercise room with apparent signs of struggle. Not only is the exercise machine overturned, but there's a futon present inside that room that has been stabbed. The blood patterns on the walls, we heard proof about how they had smears in them. There's clearly a struggle in this room.
Clearly not human.
Again,
this
going down the
kid
hallway,
was replaced at birth by an
and
alien.
Ballard were able to see the severed hands
That had
in
put
praying-like
the
position
alien in a human
Joel Guy
meat
Sr.
suit.
So how do we
stretched
get
out
to
his face and eyes?
That Joel Guy Jr. acted intentionally? What points us there? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we heard from the medical examiner yesterday, and she talked about that she was able to identify at least 42 stab wounds. And there may be more present, but based on the condition of Mr. Guy and the fact that his skin on his front side had essentially dissolved, and he was down to muscle, and portions of his skull had dissolved.
Dude.
She was still able to identify at least 42.
And Crime Spies last week after this episode was kind of looking around and found the house. And this was after the murders. This happened in 2016. And it looks like, unless they just didn't update the old pictures before, but these folks lived here for a long time. So that doesn't really make sense. That house was, I don't know about now, but the house was on the market after these murders, and the same stove was in there that is in these crime scene photos that the pot and head was on. The same fucking stove. The house looked pretty much the exact same, minus the blood splatter every fucking where. Wild. And I don't live that far from this area. I'm about 2 hours from this. I'm going to go see if I can go check out that house and be like, this is the same stove. It has been confirmed. Boots on the ground.
Stab wounds. And again, when you connect that with the legal definition of acting intentionally, a person acts intentionally when it's their conscious objective or desire to cause the death of the alleged victim. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you at least 42 stab wounds is acting intentionally. Again, we see that blood. We see signs of a struggle. We know that in the struggle, Joel Guy Sr. obtained several injuries to himself, either by trying to repel an assault or by physically grabbing the blade, knowing that he will be cut to stop an assault. What does the machine tell us? Points to a struggle. What does the couch or futon tell us? There was a struggle. But most damning, what does Joel Guy Jr. tell us when he goes to Walmart? He tells us there was a struggle.
Can't even fucking ring up stuff correctly. There, you got one.
And ladies and gentlemen, you have this video for consideration. It's in evidence. I would ask you to look at his left hand and his inability, essentially, to use it.
To even use it, yeah. He is just leaving that sumbitch down. And the other hand's fucked up, too. I mean, he tore his hands all to pieces.
Same medical supplies that are ultimately found in the guest bathroom, upstairs level of 11.
He's like, this went straight to hell.
Lane. There's so much of a struggle that Mr. Guy cannot pull his wallet out.
Wow. That hand's fucked up, dude. Wow.
If you see his hands, it's evident there was a struggle.
Jeez, he tore his hands up. Too bad he didn't chop off some fucking fingers. Wow.
Again, with regard to Joel Guy Sr.'s hands, ladies and gentlemen, again, we heard proof yesterday from Dr. Hawes, who established that these are defensive wounds in nature and that they were either obtained trying to repel an assault or grabbing a blade to stop an assault. But further, what did we learn? We learned that when Joel Guy Jr. was arrested in Louisiana, what the video didn't show us is the actual wounds. We got to look at them. We got to see how serious these wounds were. You saw the instruments of death that were used to murder Joel Guy Sr., used to stab him at least 42 times, used to create a gaping wound on the left side of his body, used to disarticulate him at the shoulders, at the hips, at the hands. And what was Joel's plan? Joel Guy Jr. Kill him with the knife. He did, ladies and gentlemen. Consider the torso, what's left of the remains of Joel Guy Sr. Again, previous to this had been dissolving, essentially, in acidic fluid. Saw some illustrations where the medical examiner was able to kind of explain the disarticulation of Joel Guy Sr. and where it happened, and also use this as a way to explain how those chemicals reacted with his skin and what they did to his body when he was face down in one of these tubs. She explained that his skin dissolved, again, that he was sectioned off of the joint. She explained that he had stab wounds that were at least 6 inches deep. Injuries of his lungs, liver, kidneys. We got to see his clothes. Joel Michael Guy Jr. was Nice enough to not cut his dad's off, at least his pants. Saw the signs of stabs, cuts.
It's such a brutal way to do, you know, to kill somebody. Jesus, dude. Please.
Hey, next 5 to 10 if you get a breaking point.
Actually, probably a good time. Yes, sir.
All right, folks, so your lunch is here. It's 12:15. I'm going to go ahead and interrupt General
When the lunch
Sanchez.
comes
We will
through,
continue with his
everything stops.
closing arguments when we
We're
get back.
on the sun.
We're getting close, but we're
This
not
is
there
the
yet.
trial,
So do
first trial on the sun, actually. I don't know if
not
anybody knows
assess
that.
this
How's
case
that?
among yourselves.
Every time it just goes completely bright like that, they're opening the windows.
Or with anyone else, please go with the
Have to be
officers.
very
Enjoy your
careful.
lunch. I'll see you here in about 45 minutes today. It'll be a shorter lunch today, 45 minutes.
We're going to keep rolling here. They had to stop to eat, but this video is still going to keep rolling with the...
Oh, yeah, when you may be seated. Is the state way to call, jury?
Everyone's nice and
Defense
full
way to
now.
call? Welcome back, folks. Hope you had a good lunch. We're ready to resume our closing arguments in this case. Just to let you know, I am aware.
I'm gonna be
that
honest
there-
though, like I couldn't imagine being a juror and sitting there, or any, you know, whoever, you know, the other people, like the attorneys and the judge, they, you know, they're a little bit different. They have a job and they're actively, I mean, not that the jury doesn't, they're literally have someone's life in their hands. But if you're hungry, right, there's no way I could be thinking clearly. I would have that would be important. It really, truly would. Because, I mean, you want to be alert. You want to be firing on all cylinders during this. You don't want to be sitting there randomly thinking about a fucking, you know, Twinkie or something crazy. Like, just being completely honest there.
There is some popping in the speakers. There's a loose connection somewhere.
I understand.
tried to track
I
it
get
down over lunch and was not able to find that.
And that's a good point, too, though. No, that's actually even a better point, Suzanne, because how are you going to eat? No, that's actually, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, there's no way I can't eat. But you're seeing all of these grotesque things, going through an actual dismemberment trial and everything we just heard. Oh, your lunch is here. Now, that's actually a way better fucking point. Oh, my God. No, actually, you're right. So even if you are hungry, you know, that's going to, your appetite's going to be gone because of what you've just witnessed and heard. Oh, Lord. No, this is actually turning into a bit of a torture if you're a juror in this one. My God. I didn't really think it through.
Just,
Son of a
I don't,
bitch.
hopefully it's not too distracting. If it is, let me know and we'll try to find
Is it God's chicken? Did they bring God's
another
chicken?
way to present the PowerPoint to you. I do want to ask too, I forgot to ask yesterday, but has everybody been able to hear clearly, Mr. Sanchez, during closing, everything else? Anybody have any difficulty hearing or seeing or listening? All right, very good. All right, Mr. Sanchez, you may resume
Hey,
your
everyone's just looking at their food.
closing argument, sir.
Amber's like, I've seen some shit,
Talking
y'all.
about the elements of premeditated first-degree murder, that the state has the burden to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt the essential elements for that offense, being that Joel Michael Guy Jr. unlawfully killed Lisa Guy, his mother, and Joel Guy Sr., and that he did so intentionally, and that he did so with premeditation. We talked about the premeditation in the purchase supplies. We talked about the premeditation in the notebook, the book of premeditation. We also went through the entries and we looked at the intentional acts of Joel Guy Jr. with regard to the unlawful killing of his father. And we left here, ladies and gentlemen, with the shirt that Joel Guy Sr. was wearing that was ultimately removed from him with a pair of scissors, cut off, stab wounds present. Again, this is a man who suffered at least 42 stab wounds, ladies and gentlemen. An intentional killing. And next, I want to focus on the intentional killing of Lisa Guy that occurred in the upstairs landing at 11434 Golden View Lane here in Knox County, Tennessee on November the 26th,
It was a little bit more perverted and perverse with
2016.
the way he took his mother's clothes off.
We know Joel Guy Jr. had a plan. He had a plan with regard to
Learned
what
that.
order he was going to execute his parents in. He demonstrated that in his book of premeditation. Clean up the mess from him before she gets home. He's looking for a window when his mother will not be present, when he can take care of his dad and wait for her to get home and take care of her. We know that Miss Guy checked out of Walmart on November the 26th, 2016 at roughly 12:18. She's captured on video surveillance purchasing items that are ultimately found in the foyer and the downstairs of the residence. We know that she makes it out of Walmart at roughly 12:19, and that Joel Guy Jr., the defendant, goes to Walmart at 3:35 the same day. The work has been done at that point. Lisa Guy, Joel Guy Sr. have been murdered. And how do we know that? We know that through proof that came in during the course of this trial, receipts that corroborate the items that were purchased, a receipt that corroborates the date and time, as well as the video. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the last moments of Lisa Guy's life. And you are watching her in the same clothing that she was murdered in, and that was ultimately cut off her body.
Dude. I get fucked up when I'll see like the last moments of people's lives, like right before.
Not a worry in the world.
But, you know, they don't have any clue. How could you?
Little
Again,
did
not a
Lisa
worry in the
Guy
world,
know.
and you come home and you get ambushed by this fucking dude
had
who
no
you
idea
raised
of
your
the terror
came
that
out of
awaited
you. You birthed this thing, and this is what's. Oh my god, dude, it's so
She
fucking.
came
dark.
in, what the proof demonstrates, through the front door, brought in groceries with what the proof demonstrates without the help of Joe Guy Jr., who at this point had cut hands. She was lured upstairs, up the stairwell, through the doggy door, and brutally attacked. We saw from Investigator McCord and Officer Ballard the blood present on the way up the stairs. And we submit to you that that blood was likely the result of Joel Guy Jr. bringing his mother's decapitated head down the stairwell, ultimately putting it in a stock pot and boiling it for days before it's ultimately discovered. And again, the crime scene diagram demonstrates that Miss Guy came up the stairs, took a left, went through the doggy door, and was ultimately attacked and murdered in location A. We saw the items, the sewer line cleaner, the empty bottles, ladies and gentlemen, of sewer line cleaner, the acid-based solution. Her clothing, underwear were cut off, her bra was cut off, her undershirt with numerous stab wounds was cut off. Her sweatshirt that she was wearing moments before was cut off. And Mr. Joel Guy Jr. accomplished that with the use of a kitchen knife. And with regard to acting intentionally, ladies and gentlemen, what did we hear from Dr. Haas? Dr. Haas testified that Miss Guy as well was disarticulated at the shoulders, at the knees. She was decapitated before she was placed in an acid-based solution and left to dissolve. What does that tell us, ladies and gentlemen? At least 31 stab wounds. I submit to you that is acting intentionally. That is someone who is trying to bring about the death of an alleged victim. Again, the judge will instruct you, what is acting intentionally legally? A person acts intentionally when it's the person's conscious objective or desire to cause the death of the alleged victim. Joel Guy Jr., the proof establishes in this case, acted intentionally when he stabbed his mother at least 31 times, dismembered her, and decapitated her. We saw the pictures of the back of Lisa Guy, and while they're hard to look at, they paint a picture. We heard about the tails and how these tails on these certain wounds are created and what causes those tails. And it's either the knife moving or the victim trying to move. We also learned that Lisa Guy had 5 stab wounds to her buttock, consistent with trying to get away. The diagrams that Dr. Haas provided us paint a picture. They tell us that Not only did Lisa Guy have a tremendous gaping wound on her front, so did Joel Guy Sr. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that is for one purpose, and that is for this chemical-based solution to enter their main cavity to quicken the process of dissolving Joel Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy.
Crazy, dude.
What else did we learn about the attack with regard to Lisa Guy? She, like Joel Guy Sr., had wounds that were at least 6 inches deep. And again, thinking to acting intentionally, stabbing someone 6 inches deep. Her injuries, significant injuries. She had injuries to her heart. She had injuries to her kidney, her spine.
Knives suck, man. Like, you could be stabbed, it goes into something very important, and then you just bleed out. Like, what freaks me out about stabbings, shootings too, when you hear about anybody that knows actively that they are dying, right? Like, in real time. This would have still been super quick, probably, I guess, because he just was going nuts. And then he's probably hitting vital spots multiple times. But, like, that always fucks with my head, though. Just thinking about they know their demise is happening in real time. And I'm guessing more kind of on the side of if you're having to suffer and then you're just stuck with your fucking brain racing with that type of... that's just nightmare fuel, but...
She had a hole in her back.
But a knife, though.
From an attack.
Such a brutal way to kill somebody.
She had injuries to her lungs. And if you look at the wounds on her back, that is not surprising.
Fucking parents, dude. Like,
Dr. Murray Marks testified. You heard from him. And you heard about the injuries to her bones. Blunt force injuries with a knife entering with such a thrust that it cuts into her ribs, removes pieces of her ribs. You heard about the process of how Joe Michael Guy Jr. Decapitated her, how he did it awfully high on her neck, and he had to apply some degree of force to separate her head from her neck. Joe Guy Jr.'s own words in the book of premeditation. Remove her clothes and take them with me for disposal. Well, he achieved half his objective, ladies and gentlemen. He removed her clothes. And that's demonstrated by the pictures that were entered in evidence in this case. Investigator Sandy Campbell with the crime scene for the Knox County Sheriff's Office. She recreated how the items of clothing were physically removed and made sense of it in a way that we could understand it. Her pants were cut in the back, up each leg, through to the top, stripped off her stabbed body. Her bra was cut. The rear of her underwear and the crotch area were cut. Her undershirt, evident, ladies and gentlemen, was cut. Again, at least 31 stab wounds or incised wounds of the back, right buttock, and left side of the neck. We heard from Dr. Hawes that she was likely attacked from the front and the back, as well as Joel Guy Sr. Lisa Guy had a serious wound that went to the muscle on her clavicle area, and the main attack was to her backside. Joel Guy Sr. had stab wounds to his ribs, and again, the main attack was to his backside. Joel Guy Jr. cut off his mother's sweatshirt, same sweatshirt she was wearing just moments earlier. And again, in looking at that through Sandy Campbell, evidence in this proof in this case, we can see that this sweatshirt was cut off. And what does Joel Michael Guy Jr. do after he kills his parents? He goes to tend to himself. He buys the requisite supplies he needs to treat his wounds that he obtained in a fight with his dad, Joel Guy Sr., who was trying to stop an assault, a murder. So with regard to premeditated first-degree murder, ladies and gentlemen, the proof has showed to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, the three necessary elements. That the defendant unlawfully killed Lisa and Joel Guy Sr. He didn't have a reason to do so. He didn't act in self-defense. The proof has showed that he intentionally killed them. Again, Joel Guy Sr. stabbed at least 41 times. Lisa Guy is stabbed at least 32 times.
4 days?
When we consider premeditation, ladies and gentlemen,
They had to have been
belabor the
enjoying the
point,
fucking
but
food. It makes
we
no
have been
sense,
starting up to
man.
19 days before the commission of these offenses, these brutal murders, purchasing supplies that he intends to use in his grand plan to obtain $500,000. We submit to you that the book of murder, the notebook that he drafted with his DNA on it,
The Book of
that
Murder.
is corroborated by every piece of evidence in this case, we submit to you that that shows premeditation beyond a reasonable doubt. Next, with regard to felony murder. As you know, Mr. Guy is charged with felony murder in 3 counts, 2 for the thefts that are committed in the perpetration of the killing, and 1 for the killing of Lisa Guy in the commission of killing Joel Guy Sr. So the elements for felony murder are a little bit different, and what the state must prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt is that Joel Michael Guy Jr., again, unlawfully killed Joel Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy, and that the killing was committed in the perpetration of the theft. The theft in this case being the money transfers, the pills. The defendant, Joel Michael Guy Jr., in possession of his father's card that was used on the 27th to make 3 significant transactions. The 27th being a day after what the proof demonstrates the victims were slain in this case. Furthermore, you saw the wallets, ladies and gentlemen. You saw the wallets laying on the dining room table. You saw Joel Guy Sr.'s wallet empty. You saw on the video Lisa Guy shopping. She was in possession of that wallet just moments before she was murdered. You heard proof through Eddie Wassman at the Sheriff's Department, who specializes in forensic examination of electronic devices. You heard from him that on the 27th, in conducting a forensic analysis of the desktop computer that belonged to Joel Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy, that he came across transfers that were planned or happened on the 27th of November 2016. The first one being at 9:38 a.m. using card, ladies and gentlemen, 5773 for the amount of $1,025. 2 minutes later, same day, 9:40 a.m., same card ending in 5773 was charged $1,589.78. 1 minute later, on the 27th of November 2016, card ending in 5773 was charged $2,051.03, all of which are going to the bursar operations. And we heard from Investigator Wassman that based on his investigation, he was able to determine that that was a payment to the Louisiana State University. And proof is established that Joel Michael Guy Jr. Was a student at Louisiana State University. Again, in considering the crime scene, ladies and gentlemen, what you have up here is the guest bedroom. We've seen ample pictures of the guest bedroom, all the items in the guest bedroom, but particularly next to the bottle of food-grade hydrogen peroxide with Joel Michael Guy Jr.'s DNA and blood on there is a card that belongs to his father, a card that was used a day after his death to make 3 money transfers. Close-up of that card. Again, last 4 digits, 5773. That is a theft that's committed in the perpetration of this murder, these murders.
Just go get a
We
fucking
also
job.
learned from Eddie Wassman that
Go
upon looking at the
try
computer,
to
there
get a
was
job. Go
transfer
try before. I mean, he
capital
didn't even.
one.
He did
The
nothing.
account belonged to Joel Guy Sr. that occurred on 11/27/2016, 3:49 p.m. You have the SunTrust records before you, ladies and gentlemen. I would ask you to consider those. Look at those. They're in evidence. And what you'll find is that on the 27th, with a posting date of the 28th, a check card purchase from Joel Guy Sr.'s account was charged in the amount of $3,090.
Yeah, Gabby. And Gabby's, I think, a little bit new to this, but essentially, that's exactly what happened. He was getting cut off by his parents. He had been taken through school by them financially till the age he was currently. He was trying to be a plastic surgeon. He was a failure in life, as you can clearly see, but was failing at that as well. And his ultimate plan was to kill his parents and get $500,000 of insurance loot. That was his plan, written out in great detail in this murder book that they keep mentioning. It's a journal. Like, he detailed out all of this. It's pretty fucking wild. But yeah, ultimately, a lazy piece of shit that was getting cut off by his parents because the dad had lost his job. I think that he had a really good job. I think they were going to downsize, though. They were about to sell their house. They literally couldn't continue to support an adult human being that was about to be 30 years old the way they had been. And this kid freaked the fuck out. This man, this fucking freak show freaked out and murdered his parents on Thanksgiving weekend.
Particularly a organization,
Man, baby,
Submeter One
100%.
in Louisiana.
100%.
With regard to the pills, ladies and gentlemen, we've seen proof. Let's start with the kitchen. Let's start with the empty oxycodone bottle found next to the pot that Lisa Guy's head was simmering in for days after Joel Michael Guy Jr. left. We know that stove was on, based on the pictures you've seen, when investigators entered that residence at 11434 Golden View Lane. It doesn't stop there. We go up to the guest bedroom, and we have various prescription pills assigned to Joel Michael Guy with the address of 11434 Golden View Lane. We have other pills that have been prescribed to Lisa Guy with an address of 11434 Golden View Lane. With regard to the felony murder, the judge is going to instruct you on some law that's helpful when determining this type of charge. And essentially, what's relevant in our argument is that the killing may precede, coincide with, or follow the theft. So the killing can occur before the theft and still be considered as occurring in the perpetration of the theft, so long as there is a connection in time, place, and continuity of action. Let's talk about first the connection in time, ladies and gentlemen. What do we know about the 26th? We know that Lisa Guy went to Walmart. We know that Joel Guy went to Walmart. We know that they were executed on the 26th. We know that he had a plan to murder his father and wait until his mother was out before he murdered her. Connection in time. It's demonstrated here. We know that at 3:26, Joel Michael Guy Jr. is entering Walmart Turkey Creek here in Knox County, Tennessee, with bandages on his hands. We know that he used cash. We know that it occurred on 11/26 at 15:35, which translates to 3:35.
See how succinct this is and how they're breaking it really, I mean, again, 4 days, but they're breaking it the fuck down for the jurors, right? They're like, listen, step by step, this is exactly why we can 100% tell you that this motherfucker murdered these people. Think about that in comparison again to the Koberger trial, another knife murder. Dude, and the lack of evidence there, like, that's going to be really wild to see how they're going to try to piece that together to convince a jury that Brian Koberger committed all of those murders, that crime. That's crazy because this is so detailed, and it still took the jury 4 freaking days.
Connection in place. Ladies and gentlemen, the proof has showed to you and demonstrated that all the offenses charged in this case occurred here in Knox County, Tennessee, specifically at the 11434 Golden View Lane address here in Knoxville. That would be the murders of Joel Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy, as well as the thefts. We know that Joel Guy Jr. didn't leave until the late hours of the 27th into the 28th. That's when he spotted heading back to Louisiana. by the use of the license plate reader through Vigilant Solutions. Continuity of action. What this case shows us is that there's no broken plan after the homicide has been committed. There's no broken plan after the thefts have been committed. The only broken plan here is Joel Michael Guy Jr. leaving to tend to his wounds. But he wasn't done. He had a plan to light this house on fire. He had a plan to bring 4 or 5 gallon tanks of gasoline with him. He had a plan to use commercial timers to ignite a fire. He had a plan to light in electronics, namely a hair curler and a hair dryer to start a fire. He was not done. There's another count of felony murder that deals with the killing committed during the perpetration of the first-degree premeditated murder of Joel Guy Sr. Essentially, that's dealing with Lisa Guy being the victim in this count, where she is murdered during the commission of Joel Guy Sr.'s premeditated first-degree murder. And again, I don't want to belabor it, but we know that it's in the commission based on Joel Guy Jr.'s own words, his own words, from his book of premeditation. Again, what's relevant here, the killing may precede, coincide with, or follow the first-degree murder of Joel Guy Sr. and still be considered as occurring in the perpetration of the murder of Joel Guy Sr., so long as there's, again, connection in time, place, and continuity of action. We believe that the proof in this case certainly establishes that, ladies and gentlemen. Next, we have 2 counts dealing with the abuse of a corpse, namely the corpse of Lisa Guy and of Joel Guy Sr. And what we have to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, is that the defendant, Joel Guy Jr., did physically mistreat a corpse in a manner offensive to the sensibilities of an ordinary person, and that the defendant acted without legal privilege to do so. In other words, he's not a medical examiner, he's not a coroner. He acted without a legal privilege to do so, and we have to establish that he acted knowingly. So what is the proof demonstrated to us?
It's going to be hilarious when the defense comes up for their closing argument, and it's going to be 1 minute in length. I don't know that. I haven't looked. I know that their opening statement was 2 tops, though. 2 minutes. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. Literally 2 minutes. And he said, "Hey, I'm glad you guys could be here today. Thanks for coming. You probably have busy lives. This is pretty cool of you."
With regard to the abuse of a corpse of Lisa Guy, the decapitation with thermal changes of head, that's abuse of a corpse, ladies and gentlemen. He didn't have a legal standing to decapitate his mother, Lisa Guy, and to simmer her head for 2 days. He didn't have a legal right to dismember or disarticulate Lisa Guy at the head, the shoulders, the knees, one hand. He didn't have a legal right to put Lisa Guy in an acid-based solution and leave her to dissolve. With regard to the abuse of the corpse of Joel Guy Sr., he did not have a legal right to disarticulate his father or dismember his father at the hands, at the arms, at the shoulders, at the hips. He did not have a legal right to then place his father in an acid-based solution in an attempt to dissolve him. Now the judge is going to instruct you regarding
every line is worse than the
flight
last.
is, what the
Jesus.
flight is of a person accused, and I ask you to pay attention to that, ladies and gentlemen, particularly as it relates to these facts. And essentially, you'll hear it again from the judge, but the flight of a person accused of a crime is a circumstance which, when considered with all the facts of the case, may justify an inference of guilt. Flight is the voluntary withdrawal of oneself for the purpose of evading arrest or prosecution for the crime charged. You will also hear an instruction on tampering with evidence And I ask you to pay attention to that as it applies to this case as well. The judge will instruct you as to that. Last, ladies and gentlemen, look at the pictures in this case. The house demonstrates the love that the guys had for their only son. Joel and Lisa Guy, they did love Joel Guy Jr. We've heard proof from sisters who testified they had a loving family. We heard proof that they supported their only son. In fact, the only reason Lisa Guy worked was to support Joel Guy Jr. while he attended school in Louisiana. Proof in this case demonstrates that Lisa Guy and Joel Guy Sr. suffered. They suffered a great deal. Think about the exercise room, ladies and gentlemen, the struggle.
I can't imagine, dude.
The wounds to Joel Guy Sr.'s hands. Ultimately, they didn't deserve his death. Their lives mattered. And we ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to consider all the proof in this case and render the only just verdict given these facts. We ask that you hold Joel Guy Jr. accountable and that you find him guilty as charged. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
All right. I'm going to look. 7 minutes. Hold on. Look at this. 7 minutes. I don't even think, yeah, 7 minutes. The defense's closing arguments. The defense delivers their closing arguments. Okay, so we're going to go into this. We're going to keep rocking and rolling. Everybody hanging and banging here today. I appreciate it. Thank y'all so much. Welcome here to Murder Church. We're not fucking around, huh?
Hold up! Hold up! Hold up!
Yeah, if you're on the YouTube side of things, please hit the like. It really helps us out, gets us into the algorithm over there. Give it a share. Let people know that you're hanging out with Publicly Buzzed and on Murder Church. This is the season finale of season 3 here on Murder Church of this trial before we go into a new one. Probably be picking that out on Feral Friday, this Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time right here on YouTube. And yeah, if you're over on X watching this, thank you very much. There's over 600 people over there right now checking it out. Thank you all so much. Come over to YouTube and give us a sub over here as well. We do a lot of live streams. We're on a lot of different platforms. I do a lot on X as well. So if you're just randomly watching on X and you're not following over there, please sub up. Please follow. Appreciate it, guys. I'm going to get you with a stinger. I want to keep rocking and rolling. Mad at you.
Son of a bitch!
I first want to say thank you again for
Go.
sitting through this. I know it's been difficult, but we're close to the end. That weekend, Joel Guy was outgoing, friendly, and happy in a way Michelle Tyler had never seen him before. Outgoing, friendly,
Shelly.
and happy. That was not a man about to commit a homicide. Outgoing, friendly, and happy. You saw it in the picture from the front porch. Smiling, happy. That's who Joel Guy was that weekend.
Oh, wow.
He was not someone planning on committing a murder.
Oh, wow. We can't see this man's face, not because of COVID, because he's hiding his real reactions. Even Joel's like,
And remember
man, I
the
don't know
facts
that.
of the case.
Can we go a different direction?
His father was stabbed at least 41 times, his mother at least 32 times. That is anger, that is rage, that is not happy and outgoing.
I'd agree with
We
that.
heard family testimony that they planned to cut him off financially at Christmas. This was not
Poke mob.
Christmas. This was not
Pokey
when that
mob.
was going to occur.
Shelly coming through.
That's why we have to look at every fact to see if this adds up. Because just from that very start, outgoing, friendly, and happy does not add up to what happened here. Rage, anger, and death. The phone call to Michael McCracken. Mr. Guy never says that he killed anybody. Mr. McCracken never asked him, did he kill anybody? There's really no reference. It's just kind of this snippet of a call taken out of somewhere else, but we don't know what it's really about. We know he's feeling sad. We know he's telling Michael this should be goodbye. But we don't know that he's committing or admitting to a homicide. Now, the state tells us to store videos, Ace Hardware. Well, you can see him purchasing the food-grade hydrogen peroxide. You can't. You can't tell what that is. You can't tell what any of those containers are from Ace. We don't have
Everybody
a
in this
receipt.
room
We
is
don't
watching
know
this man
what
like,
was
dude.
bought at Ace Hardware.
I know this is your job. This one's a rough one.
The notebook, they tell us, well, they did note DNA on the outside of the notebook, so that means on
Who wrote the journal, sir?
Someone touched the outside of that notebook. What about DNA on the writing on the inside? When you write, your hand's often in contact with the paper. Touch DNA would be all over that. That's the thing that you want to know, isn't it? Is his DNA on the part where there's a writing? We didn't do that. Page at 5 pages, we could have done that. Hand on the paper when you're writing. They didn't do that. And on the fingerprints, we know that if someone touches something, like I touch this, my print stays there. It stays there until it's removed. It's removed by my hand touching again, or by someone cleaning, or it's not removed. It can stay there. It doesn't go away. You heard what the officer said. Does the heat melt them? Does it dry? No, it can bake them in. So the fact that his fingerprints are at some point on some objects doesn't mean that that's necessarily related to this homicide.
This is a rough one.
And on the notebook, they also did not bring in a handwriting sample to say, yes, this is his writing. The burden is on them to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, and they didn't do that. His car being seen by Vigilant Technology in Mississippi. Newsflash, he did come up for Thanksgiving. Newsflash, he did go home. That tells us absolutely nothing.
I don't remember asking you.
Clearly, we know at
goddamn
some
thing.
point he hurt his hand, but that doesn't tell us when or how he hurt his hand. The fact he's getting medicine for his hand does not tell us anything about the homicide.
Hold up. Hold up. Hold up.
I don't know, bro. I don't know.
And again, on the DNA, they get to pick and choose what they tested. Kim Lowe decided she just wasn't going to test some things that she decided weren't relevant. For example, the kitchen glove. Well, of course, if a kitchen glove's in a house, you might have used it at any point. So what's the significance of testing that? I said, what about the kitchen glove in the master bathroom? Do you cook in the master bathroom? Do you do dishes in the master bathroom? And that's where the bodies were? Don't need to test that. That's not going to tell us anything at all. The clothes of Ms. Guy, we're not even going to look at them. We're told they were cut off. That means someone's hand is coming in contact with the clothes, and we know exactly where they're coming into contact with the clothes because it's exactly where they're being cut. No need to test that for touch DNA. Didn't even look at it. But then, 10 days before trial, suddenly they decide they have to test 2 more knives. And suddenly, in a rush, they can get us 2 more knives worth of DNA. They pick and choose. We just don't know if it's all accurate. You notice we didn't have any questions for the medical examiner or the pathologist. We don't deny that this was a terrible, awful thing that happened to the parents. The question is, did Joel Guy do it? Not, was this bad? So we didn't waste your time asking additional questions about that.
Oh my God. I couldn't imagine truly being innocent in a situation like this. I don't even know how I'd react. Like, I'm such an emotional person anyways. I'd be going crazy, I feel like. Like, in your head, I'm sure you'd be coached or whatever. They're like, you have to stay calm. You need to... But I don't know how you could. Like, your whole life is on the line. It's going to be ripped away if you're truly innocent. Like, I can't imagine having to stay there and do the stone-faced look ahead stuff and not show any emotion. And, it'd be rough. It'd be so hard. I'd be like pleading and be like, are you guys crazy? Look at me! Are you crazy?
Saw a ton of pictures. It felt like
Sir,
we saw everything in
they'd be
that
removing
house
me.
4 times. Picture, 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 video. None of it really had anything to do. Flight. Yes, he went back to Louisiana. That was the plan all along, wasn't it? Son going to come up for Thanksgiving, son going back home. That's all we know. We don't know anyone was chasing him back to Louisiana. And where did he go? Where was he arrested? At his apartment. He wasn't fleeing.
He was saving
wasn't
that part. He's
fighting.
like, at
He
his
went home.
apartment. He's
We
obviously
believe the state has not proven any of these charges beyond a reasonable
innocent.
doubt. We ask that you find Mr. Guy not guilty.
Thank you, Mr. Halstead, for rebuttal. General.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Where are we going next, folks? What do we got next? Prosecution rebuttal. We got a rebuttal that's going to be 30 more minutes, okay? An hour 15 for the closing. We're going to get 7 from the defense, and then another 31 for a rebuttal on top of that. She's like just going to stamp it down. She's like, nope. Listen, here's what the fuck's happening. Again, thanks everyone for hanging and banging. We're going to keep trucking this morning. We are about to finish up season 3 of Murder Church before we find a new trial. We're going to be finding it soon, and this one's been wild. Parents' dismemberment trial out of Tennessee has been crazy, okay? I appreciate everyone for coming in here. I appreciate it.
Respect my house. Just chilling.
Just chilling. Thank you very much. Got a lot of folks just chilling right now on about 700 people on X on Twitter. That's fucking crazy. That's awesome. If you're hanging out over there randomly and enjoying this, please, again, give us a follow. Give Publicly Buzzed a shot. We're true crime, but we also cover a lot of different crazy, wild stories throughout life in the world. So, yeah, give us a shot. And if you're not on YouTube following us, please go over there and give us a sub as well if you fuck with either side. But yeah, let's keep rocking and rolling. And everyone here this morning on YouTube, holy shit, there's fucking 53 people hanging in here. Insane morning. Insane fucking morning. We're doing the thing. Appreciate it. Not fucking around today. You know what I'm talking about, baby. Not messing around at all.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
So let's keep going.
General.
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, hold on. I do want to show a little bit of love. Hold on. Before we keep rolling. What a morning. It's been incredible. To the Pokemon just came through, but let me pop both of these up right here. Hope 8 Fear gave him a shout out earlier. Boom. Thank you for that. Appreciate the shit out of that. And then right behind, Pokemon coming through, gifting out a membership as well. If you are one of those 2 people that just received one of those memberships, first of all, welcome in here. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the party, pal.
You're going to be getting some behind the scenes stuff, whether that's through shorts or whether that's through members only live streams that I'm trying to get better at. But yeah, welcome in here. Appreciate the shit out of it. And thank you guys for being so fucking supportive. Kicking ass this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to go over every article of evidence that was collected in this case. You've been very patient all week, and you've heard a lot of testimony, and you saw the laborious process that we go through to introduce evidence. And I just want to direct your attention to that locker, and there are a lot of things in there. And Mr. Halstead, really, he kind of has a point that not everything, every tiny piece of each piece of evidence was swabbed and analyzed. And there is a reason for that, and it's called resources. But I want you to keep in mind when you go back there to deliberate about the evidence that you do have. And I particularly want to talk about the notebook because, you know, I think what Agent Lowe told you was that she examined the notebook and took swabs from the place most likely to leave touch DNA evidence. And that was the surface of the notebook, which is, I don't know if I would call it slick, but it's something that she, as an expert and as somebody who takes samples and knows where to look and how to look for DNA deposits, she picked the most likely place, and she found it. She found the defendant's DNA on the notebook, and
Surprise, surprise.
circumstantially, ladies and gentlemen, when you consider that notebook came from a backpack that was found in the room where his sister testified that he was staying on the Thanksgiving holiday, it makes sense that it's the defendant's notebook and the defendant's writing. I would also point out to you that inside that backpack were several books that you saw in Technician Sandlin published to you, and on the inside of those books was the defendant's name, Joel Guy. So the books that were in the backpack belonged to him. The notebook had his DNA on it, and the backpack was found in the room where he was staying. So you don't have to be, you know, just an expert in logic to make the connections that the notebook is his. But I would also like for you to consider the writing itself in the notebook, and there are references in those writings, despite the fact that there's no handwriting expert here. And if we did have one, the defense would be saying that that's junk science and you can't prove it. But you know, there are references in the notebook that indicate that the person who is writing this is the defendant. Why else would he say that his DNA would be found inside the house? I mean, logically, why would anybody other than the defendant write something like that in the notebook that has the defendant's DNA on the outside of it, in the notebook that's found in the defendant's backpack, along with other books that belong to the defendant? Throughout this writing, he makes references to things that only he would know about. His mother's insurance policy, the fact that he would be the beneficiary, the fact that he had done calculations to examine his parents' assets, his father's assets, his mother's assets, the language "all mine," I get the whole thing.
Dude,
I mean, who else other
could
than
it
the
be
defendant
any? He is
would be
the
writing
Penguin.
these things in this
Again,
notebook?
I feel bad for comparing him to the Penguin. Actually, like, I apologize, Penguin.
It has his DNA on it.
He
that
is an
was found
evil.
in his backpack.
I don't even want to use the word supervillain because that's giving him too much fucking credit. I'm just going to say villain, very villain-esque with his writing style, and it's going to be all mine. And there was, I mean, you can hear the laughter coming behind it after he writes it.
Along with his books,
The evil.
the backpack being in the room where he stayed the weekend of these murders. So, and that's just with respect to the backpack. I would also point out that you know, his DNA is found on a number of other articles of evidence that Agent Lowe examined in places where you know, really, how could you come to the conclusion that anyone other than him is the killer? Why would his DNA be on all of the 6 gloves, all of them, that she examined? 6 gloves. She told you that she examined the stained side of the gloves, which indicates, you know, blood, and the non-stained side, the inside where the gloves had been taken off, the inside out. His DNA. Also, on some of the gloves, his mother's DNA, which indicates that he was wearing gloves and indicates that at some point his mother's blood got on at least one of these gloves. So, you know, why would he be wearing gloves? I mean, why would he be wearing gloves that were bloodstained? Why would he have boxes of gloves in the closet of the room where he was staying that weekend? Why would he have a box of gloves on top of his dresser? Why would there be a discarded glove in the floor of the room where he was staying? think about it, and think about the fact that he noted in his notebook that he needed to wear gloves. That was something that he considered, wear gloves and socks, because he's very conscious in his writing that gloves and socks will cover up or prevent the deposit of DNA evidence.
That is something that is 100%. I mean, not totally, but there are some alignments to Brian Kohberger here, right? I mean, that's something that's going to be discussed, especially after it's being told to us anyways, unless they can prove otherwise, or if that's maybe just bullshit in the PCA. I don't fucking know. But talking about the gloves that he would wear around after the fact, and when he was arrested, he was wearing the gloves, and the way he would act at his parents' house, all of that stuff is going to be discussed, right? But at the end of the day, everything we've seen here, how they've approved it 100% basically, like, you still can't do that with Brian Kohberger, I don't feel like. Like, there's just so many other variables and what ifs in that case. Again, you know, we haven't even fucking got that far yet, but there's so many little things that when I'm hearing it, I'm like, that's going to be interesting once we do get to that trial, because you're almost like, huh.
Now, the state doesn't know and can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt when he made that notebook. But circumstantial proof shows that it happened before the murders, and that it happened as early as November the 7th of 2016. And you saw the video evidence. I'm not going to replay that, but we know that he went to several business locations, including the Ace Hardware store on November the 7th. And we know that that store was referenced on a note that was found inside the suitcase that was found in the floor of the room where he was staying on this Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Dan Boudreaux's Ace Hardware in Napoleonville, Louisiana. Okay? And we know that he went to a Lowe's in Gonzales, Louisiana, and made a purchase. And you can look at the videos yourself. And we know that he went to an Academy Sports and bought a knife, and that knife is the knife that was found on the bathroom counter of the guest bathroom that he used, according to his sister, Michelle Tyler. And we know that his DNA was found on that knife, along with, I believe, the DNA of, I think, his mother. So where else did he go in Louisiana? He went to a Home Depot, and he went to a Walmart, and you saw him purchase this tub, okay? And you know from Michelle Denison Tyler's testimony that she saw this tub, or these tubs, in his car on Thanksgiving weekend. So we know that he brought them up. And I submit to you that it's logical to assume that he had inside those tubs the chemicals that he had purchased in Louisiana. And I want you to think about, too, why would he bother to go to different stores in different locations? Why was he careful to purchase these items in areas outside of Baton Rouge? Baton Rouge isn't a huge town, but he could have bought all of these things in one place. These are the actions of somebody who is trying to avoid detection. He's trying not to call attention to himself. He doesn't want to purchase a huge amount of chemical products all at one time, because that looks weird, and a clerk might remember that. You might remember if you sell gallons of muriatic acid and food-grade hydrogen peroxide and sewer line cleaner to somebody, a young man, that might be something that sticks in your memory. But if you buy one or two things at a time, it's unlikely that a clerk will remember that. And
probably be different
I want you to
clerks.
think about, too, why he used cash. It's not that common. I mean, I never have cash in my pocket. It's kind of unusual that he would use cash in every transaction, and I submit to you that he did that to avoid detection, to make it harder for the police to track his actions, to be able to establish a pattern and a chain of where he went in the days preceding these homicides. Ladies and gentlemen, there is abundant DNA evidence at the scene showing that the defendant is connected to these homicides? Abundant. And it wasn't necessary for Agent Lowe to test and swab every surface of every piece of evidence that you witnessed us introducing this week. Now, I want you to consider too that maybe you can't see exactly the things on those videos that the defendant was purchasing, but think about what we did see at his parents' house. There were bags indicating the names of the stores where he had gone. Walmart bags, Home Depot bags and products, Lowe's bags and products. So again, circumstantially, all of this fits together to show that he purchased those products in and around the area where he lived, and he transported them to Knoxville, and he did so with the purpose of getting rid of the remains of his parents. And why did he want to do that? It's about money. And that sounds so terrible to think that you could kill your mother and your father for money, but that's really pretty much what it all boils down to.
It is. That's what this is about.
And that is evidenced also by his
laziness,
by the
not being able to move forward without his parents literally.
He had made calculations. He had thought about it. He spent some time. I mean, it's sort of a meticulous account of his intentions.
So much so that now he has to be taken care of by the fucking
And in
state.
a case where somebody is charged with premeditated murder, and I've tried many premeditated homicides, usually you have to put premeditation together circumstantially. And many times I have argued to a jury that you will have to put facts A, B, C, D, and E together to prove this element of premeditation. It's not like you'll have a notebook or an outline or a diary entry that's going to tell you every time.
This one's a bit different.
And,
this guy's a complete fucking moron.
That I finally got a case where I have that. That's exactly what we have.
She's like, this is a slam fucking dunk, and you guys are still going to take 4 days?
A diary that outlines a plan of intention to kill. And we have a motive. And there it is.
He wrote a diary,
so I want you to
a
think
journal.
about this motive for money in the context
details.
Of this time. Now, Mr. Halstead is correct. One of the sisters, I believe it was Renee Charles, testified, one of the sisters of Joel Sr., testified that she knew her brother had plans, his intention for the future. He was going to let his son know during the Christmas holiday that he was going to be cut off financially. But the daughters knew ahead of time. And they knew, I think by as early as October the 28th, I believe one of them testified that the parents were considering this, because you don't make the plan to retire on the spur of the moment. This is something that you think about. Believe me, I've been thinking about it quite a lot lately. You think about it days, weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years in advance. And this was a close family. They like to talk. And they discuss these plans, and you just can bet that Lisa Guy, who was Mr. Joel Guy Jr.'s biggest fan, his enabler, his supporter, you know that she told him. She had to tell him in advance what he was in for, what was coming up for him. You know that happened. If they're talking about it with Michelle and Angela and Joel Sr.'s sisters in October and November, you know that the defendant knew about it, and you know that his mother told him. So he knew what was coming. And he's smart. He's smart enough to know that once his mom retires, once she quits her job, that insurance money is gone. He isn't getting that. He's not getting that. And he's not used to supporting himself. He's used to having the support and care from
the
his
next stage was living it up off this $500K.
mother, primarily,
which would have lasted
taking care of his
2
needs,
years tops,
providing
probably
him
less
with
than
an
that.
apartment,
Clearly don't know how to
with utilities,
use money.
with a car, gas money, paying his bills, his tuition,
She's
paying
breaking
for
the
his
fuck down right
books,
now.
paying
Put a beat
for
behind this shit right
everything.
here.
He's
She's
used
booming
to
it.
having her pay for everything. And he wasn't about to let them cut him off. That was not going to happen. These people, they were
He
not
said,
going to disrupt
I need
his
my mommy and
comfortable
daddy.
life.
Where you guys
He
going?
wasn't going to permit it. He would rather
What do you
see
mean? I'm
them
only
dead
28.
than let
Give me
that
another
happen.
decade in plastic surgery school.
That's
I can
what he
do it.
planned, and that's what he did. And then he used their money, you know, not just, he didn't, it's sort of like a double motive. He wants to do it for the insurance money, but he also wants to get what he can while he can. And I want you to think about that too. He made these transactions
Greedy bastard.
after he murdered them, you know, within a very short time period, which I submit to you is during the course of the homicides, because it's all part of the same incident. He pays his tuition in advance. He pays a bill in advance, which Michelle Tyler told you was his utilities. Michelle said that he paid his apartment rent in advance. He talks to Michael McCracken about paying his rent in advance. Now, why do you think he did that? I was puzzled over this. I thought, why in the world would he be so quick to pay everything in advance? Why would you do that? You know why you would do that? Because it takes a while for an estate to be settled. It takes a while for an insurance company to make the decision to give you money. He needed a cushion. He needed about 3 or 4 months of his bills being paid while he waited to collect. Well, he waited to collect on his mother's insurance. So that's why those things were paid in advance, and that's why he did it in a hurry. He did it during the course and commission of these homicides. Outgoing, friendly, and happy. Yeah, I bet he was. But he felt very outgoing and friendly and happy. Michelle Tyler told you that that was unusual. Okay, his demeanor on Thanksgiving was strange. He was usually distant. He was usually kept to himself. He didn't interact a lot with his family. He didn't have much of a relationship with his family, and there are reasons for that, and I think Mr. Stevens explored that with Mr. Guy's only friend, Michael McCracken. You know, he lived away. He lived in Baton Rouge. He didn't live in Burgoynesville. He didn't live in Knoxville. He you know, had no reason really to have close relations with people who were older than him and who lived in different places. You know, ladies and gentlemen, despite that, these were people who were close, a caring family, a loving family, and they all knew each other's business, and they all knew exactly what was going on. And they all knew about the plans that Joel and Lisa had to retire and to take a break from life, okay? And why would he be outgoing and happy when he had been distant from them in the past? Well, I submit to you, it's because he was getting ready to get what he wanted.
I bet it does, Drew.
To implement his
Like,
plan.
what does that mean?
He wanted to deflect attention from himself. He wanted to be nice. He was playing nice. In his mind, he's thinking, well, I'm going to not give them any reason to suspect me. I'm not going to act like I'm mad. I'm not going to show them I'm mad. I'm going to make an effort to talk to the grandsons, my nephews. I'm going to give away my toys. I'm going to give away my Beanie Babies. I'm going to speak to Michelle. I'm going to interact. You know, I'm going to make this a nice holiday for everyone. So when ultimately the bodies are discovered, people are going to reflect back, and they're going to be able to say, well, you know, Joel Michael was nice that weekend. He was in a good mood. He was okay.
She's
but
doing
it
a
was
good
an
job.
act. It was a show, and it was to deflect attention from himself. Because if he had acted angry, if he'd had an argument with his mother, if he'd had it out with mom and dad over the fact that they were going to cut him off, I mean, how would that look when their bodies turn up, later, or maybe their bodies don't turn up because he actually carries out his entire plan and is able to flush them into the public waterway. Mr. Sanchez was right. He didn't finish, okay? At some point, he gave up. He ran out of steam. He ran out of energy. You heard Dr. Marks. It's hard. It's hard work to get rid of two human beings. It was hard to kill them. It wasn't easy. And it's much harder work to take them apart, to cut off their limbs, to transport them into whatever vessel you bring to dissolve them in. It's hard work to lug all those big, heavy products around, and especially when you're hurt, because it wasn't so easy to kill dear old Dad. Daddy put up a fight, and the defendant got injured, and he basically wimped out. He gave up. He wimped out and left. And you might find it curious to see that on those Vigilant Solutions records, he actually is traveling back toward Knoxville at some point. So was he coming back to finish the job? We will never know. That's something that the state can't prove. All we can prove is that he left shortly after midnight on the 28th and was back in Baton Rouge when he was arrested on November the 29th. We can't prove what happened between those times. Let's talk about how hard it was to kill Mom and Dad. I want you to think about the last moments that Joel Guy Sr. spent on this earth. He was attacked by his own son. He had to fight him off, and it was a fierce fight. You saw the evidence in that room. I don't have to show it to you again. You saw his hands, both of his hands. At some point, that man had his hands on the knife that his son was using to kill him. And he knew it was his son. He faced him. He was stabbed in the gut. He knew his attacker. Think about that. Think about that. Think about the blood in that room. Think about that corner. Think about the thrashing about. It's no surprise that the defendant was hurt. It's no surprise at all he was hurt in that struggle. And he must have been feeling some pain when he had to kill his poor mother. There she was at Walmart at 12:18. How tragic that your last moments on earth were at a Walmart, buying bacon and sausage and food to prepare a nice breakfast probably for your dear son who was home for one of his few visits. There she was, purchasing things to take care of her boy, getting him ice cream. Watching her put on her jacket because it was cold. It's very heartbreaking. Watching her push that buggy, knowing where she's going, thinking about her pulling up to the driveway, to that garage. The garage door that wouldn't open. We don't know why it wouldn't open. Most of us pull into our garage, and especially if the kitchen is next to it. Most people don't bring their groceries in through the front door, do they? Don't you usually bring them in from the garage into the kitchen? But for some reason, she had to come through the front door. Did she have to knock at the door? I don't know. Was she able to get in? Probably. He probably took the doorknob and the realtor lock off after the fact. Okay, he had several hours to fiddle with the scene after he had killed his parents. But Lisa came home, and she lugged all of those bags of groceries in by herself, and she got them in, and something made her go upstairs. What was it? Did she hear the struggle between her son and her husband? Did she? Or did he call her? Did he tell her to come upstairs? Did he say, "Mother, I'm hurt"? We don't know. We'll never know. All we know is that when she got to the top of the stairs, there he was. And he had a knife. And he stabbed her. And she saw him.
Me too,
He was
Jessica.
stabbed in the clavicle. She saw this boy, her only child. You heard the testimony about how much she loved him, how she worked only to support him. And he cut her up. He cut her up. And then he cut her clothes off her body. He cut off her jeans. He cut off her panties. He cut off her shirt. He cut off her bra. He took off her ring and he left it in the floor. He cut off her head. He cut off his mother's head. He cut off his father's clothes. He pulled his jeans down. He piled it all up beside him. He left his cigarettes, Joel Sr.'s cigarettes, bloody pack on top. It struck me as an act of contempt, you know. Here's your smokes, Dad. That's what he did. And he did it for money. And after he killed her, I don't know what time it was probably sometime after 12:30. He left their bodies to cool off, you know, because he was hurt and he had to go take care of himself. Do you remember seeing Lisa's purse on that? It was the kitchen table, not the dining room table, and her wallet. He had done that, okay? The police didn't do that. The defendant had gone through her purse and had taken out
that's what
her
I'm seeing
wallet
too,
and-
Gabby.
and his
And that
father's
fucking dude
wallet,
said.
and he got money. Okay, he needed cash. Lisa Guy paid for the medical supplies that he bought to treat his hands that he hurt when he was killing his father. And then just as calmly as you please, he goes to the Walmart. He goes through the doors and he goes to the medical department and he buys his bandages and he buys hydrogen peroxide, 2 bottles of it, 2 big bottles of rubbing alcohol, because you know what? Rubbing alcohol and peroxide in even small bottles can destroy evidence. They can clean your wounds, but they can also clean things off. Like that K-bar knife, for example, that's on the bathroom counter. She paid for his medical supplies. She paid for all of this, okay? Because she was supporting him. And think about that. She paid for the drain cleaner she was dissolved in. She paid for the muriatic acid. She paid for the work lights that he thought he was going to need. She paid for the sledgehammer. She paid for the timers.
everything.
She paid for the plastic sheeting. She paid for that
Bro.
garden hose. She paid for the small sprayer in the
Should
master
have
bathroom.
sound effects every time she nails
paid
one.
for the big sprayer,
I
the
got 'em.
bleach sprayer that was left in the floor of the kitchen. She paid for those garbage bags. She paid for his socks. She paid for his red potato salad that he got when he was buying his medical supplies, because he worked up an appetite after all of that and he was in the mood for some red potato salad. Think about that.
Boom!
Think about that. She paid for the tubs that she and her husband disintegrated in. She worked all those years at Jacob Engineering to put him up, to keep him in his lifelong whatever program he's in at LSU. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? She was still looking for a job in Seguinsville. Do you remember Renee Charles telling you that? She wasn't going to cut him off. She was going to find a job up there. She was going to keep supporting him. Oh my goodness.
So take a breather. You're doing good. Jesus. This
She
is the
gave him
rebuttal.
everything he wanted. And then she had the nerve to tell him that they were tired and needed a break. Nobody else had a reason to do this, okay? No one else. And the proof in this case isn't strong. It isn't anything other than overwhelming. Overwhelming. And we ask you to consider everything in this case, and we ask you to convict him of premeditated murder, convict him of felony murder, and convict him of abusing the corpses of his mother and his father. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, jury, we're going to take one last recess. When you come back, I will read you the instructions of law. After that, you'll begin your deliberations to make a decision in the case. We're not there just yet, though, so please continue not to discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else. You may leave your notebooks and chairs. This will be a 10-minute recess. Please go with the officers.
Yeah, we're getting close to 800 people watching on Twitter, Jay. That's fucking crazy, dudes. What a morning. What an ending to season 3 of Murder Church. Now, right here we have jury instructions. Judge Sword, badass name, charges the jury. So, yeah, we'll watch through some of this. I don't know if I'll watch all of the jury instructions. We've seen some jury instructions. We'll watch a little bit. Then we're going to go into the verdict, and then victim impact statements, and then sentencing. So, yeah, I might not watch all of this jury instruction, so we can finish this today. But we're going to go in here just for a minute. Again, thanks everyone for hanging out this morning. I appreciate the shit out of it. Whether you're on Twitter or whether you're here on YouTube, thank you very much. Been an insane morning. We have 800 people over on X right now watching. 795 to be exact. Thanks so much for hanging out. Appreciate it. This Friday night, we're going to find a new trial to start Murder Church Season 4 with. So make sure that you're following on YouTube and even here on X. Make sure you're following here because we're definitely going to continue streaming here as well. Everyone in here this morning on YouTube, thank you so much. Hit that like. Get us in the algorithm. Let people know that you're hanging out with Publicly Buzzed this morning. Give it a share ski. Let people know that you're watching, whether that's on Facebook or X or wherever the fuck. Appreciate it, guys. We're going to keep rocking and rolling. I'm going to hit you with a stinger and we're going to roll on down the road here. Again, I might not watch all the jury instructions.
Defense by the call. Welcome back, everyone. It is now time for the presentation of the legal instructions. The instructions I'm going to give you on the law are contained in this booklet, which you will have with you during your deliberations. So don't feel like you have to memorize everything I'm getting ready to read to you. You will have this original copy, and if you need additional copies, we can provide you with additional copies as well. But I do want to direct your attention to the screen one last time, and we can turn the lights down, please. I sat in the back earlier and was able to see that. I know it's not too easy to see from the back row, but please follow along with me as I go through these instructions. The evidence and argument in this case have been completed, and I will now instruct you as to the law. The law applicable to this case is stated in these instructions, and it is your duty to consider all of them. The order in which these instructions are given is no indication of their relative importance. You should not single out one or more of them to the exclusion of others, but should consider each one in the light of and in harmony with the others. The indictment is the formal written accusation charging the defendant with a crime. It is not evidence against the defendant and does not create any inference of guilt. The defendant, Joel Michael Guy, is charged in indictment number 110145 with the offenses of first-degree premeditated murder, first-degree felony murder, and abuse of a corpse. To these offenses, he has entered pleas of not guilty. There are 7 counts in this indictment for you to consider. The crime charged in each count of the indictment is a separate and distinct offense. You must decide each charge separately on the evidence and the law.
I don't think I can do. I'm watching this literally through Court TV's website. I don't think I can do the higher speed on
applicable to it. The defendant may be found guilty or not guilty of any or all of the offenses charged. Your findings of each crime charged must be stated in your verdict. The elements of each offense the state is required to prove are as follows. I've placed counts 1 and 2 together because they charge the same offense with just different alleged victims. This is the offense of first-degree premeditated murder in counts 1 and 2. Any person who commits the offense of first-degree premeditated murder is guilty of a crime. For you to find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must have proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following essential elements. 1, that the defendant unlawfully killed the victim. As to count 1, the alleged victim is Joel M. Guy Sr. As to the second count, the alleged victim is Lisa Guy. And 2, that the defendant acted intentionally. A person acts intentionally when it's the person's conscious objective or desire to cause the death of the alleged victim. And 3, that the killing was premeditated. A premeditated act is one done after the exercise of reflection and judgment. Premeditation means that the intent to kill must have been formed prior to the act itself. It is not necessary that the purpose to kill pre-exists in the mind of the accused for any definite period of time. The mental state of the accused at the time he allegedly decided to kill must be carefully considered in order to determine whether the accused was sufficiently free from excitement and passion as to be capable of premeditation. If the design to kill was formed with premeditation, it is immaterial that the accused may have been in a state of passion or excitement when the design was carried into effect. Furthermore, premeditation can be found if the decision to kill is first formed during the heat of passion, but the accused commits the act after the passion has subsided. Third count, first-degree felony murder during first-degree premeditated murder. Any person who commits first-degree felony murder is guilty of a crime. For you to find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must have proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following essential elements. 1, that the defendant unlawfully killed Lisa Guy. And 2, that the killing was committed in the perpetration of first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. That is, that the killing was closely connected to the alleged first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. and was not a separate, distinct, and independent event. And 3, that the defendant intended to commit the alleged first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. The elements necessary to constitute first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. have been defined for you above in count 1. You will refer to those elements here. The intent to commit the underlying first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. must exist prior to or concurrent with the commission of the act causing the death of Lisa Guy. Proof that such intent to commit the underlying first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. existed before or concurrent with the act of the killing of Lisa Guy is a question of fact to be decided by the jury after consideration of all the facts and circumstances. Consideration of such factors as time, place, and causation is helpful in determining whether the killing of Lisa Guy was committed in the perpetration of the alleged first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. The killing of Lisa Guy may precede, coincide with, or follow the first-degree premeditated murder of Joel M. Guy Sr. and still be considered as occurring in the perpetration of the first-degree murder of Joel M. Guy Sr., so long as there is a connection in time, place, and continuity of action. Intended for this offense has been defined for you above under counts 1 and 2 in the definition of intentionally. I have placed counts 4 and 5 together, again, because they charge the same offense with 2 separate alleged victims. The 4th and 5th counts charge first-degree felony murder during theft. Any person who commits first-degree felony murder is guilty of a crime. For you to find the defendant guilty of this offense or offenses, the state must have proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following essential elements. 1, that the defendant unlawfully killed the alleged victim. As to the 4th count, the alleged victim is Joel M. Guy Sr. As to the 5th count, the alleged victim is Lisa Guy. And 2, that the killing was committed in the perpetration of theft. That is, that the killing was closely connected to the alleged theft and was not a separate, distinct, and independent event. And 3, that the defendant intended to commit the alleged theft. The elements necessary to constitute theft are as follows. 1, that the defendant knowingly obtained or exercised control over property owned by Joel and or Lisa Guy. And 2, the defendant did not have the owner's effective consent. And 3, that the defendant intended to deprive the owner of the property. Again, The intent to commit the underlying theft must exist prior to or concurrent with the commission of the act causing the death of the victim. Proof that such intent to commit the underlying theft existed before or concurrent with the act of killing is a question of fact to be decided by the jury after consideration of all the facts and circumstances. Again, considerations of such factors as time, place, and causation is helpful in determining whether a killing was committed in the perpetration of the alleged theft. The killing may precede, coincide with, or follow the theft and still be considered as occurring in the perpetration of the theft, so long as there is a connection in time, place, and continuity of action. Intended or intentionally for this offense means that a person acts intentionally with respect to the nature of the conduct or to a result of the conduct when it is the person's conscious objective or desire to engage in the conduct or cause the result. Now, there are some lesser included offenses that you may consider in the first 5 counts charging first-degree murder. And this first instruction tells you the order in which you're to consider the charged offense in relation to the lesser included offenses. In reaching your verdict, you shall first consider the offense charged in the indictment. If you unanimously find the defendant guilty of that offense beyond a reasonable doubt, you shall return a verdict of guilty for that offense. If you unanimously find the defendant not guilty of that offense or have a reasonable doubt of the defendant's guilt of that offense, you shall then proceed to consider whether or not the defendant is guilty of the next lesser included offense in order from greatest to least within that count of the indictment. You shall not proceed to consider any lesser included offense until you have first made a unanimous determination that the defendant is not guilty of the immediately preceding greater offense or unanimously have a reasonable doubt of the defendant's guilt of that offense. If you have a reasonable doubt of the guilt of the defendant as to all offenses charged and included in that count of the indictment, you shall return a verdict of not guilty and proceed to the other counts of the indictment. Here are the lesser included offenses, beginning with second-degree murder. If you have a reasonable doubt as the defendant's guilt of first-degree murder as charged in one or more of the first 5 counts in this indictment, then your verdict must be not guilty as that count or counts, and then you shall proceed to determine his guilt or innocence of second-degree murder for that count or counts. Second-degree murder is a lesser included offense in each of the first 5 counts. Any person who commits second-degree murder is guilty of a crime. For you to find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must have proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following essential elements. 1, that the defendant unlawfully killed the alleged victim, and in counts 1 and 4, the alleged victim is Joel M. Guy Sr., and counts 2, 3, and 5, the alleged victim is Lisa Guy, and 2, that the defendant acted knowingly. Knowingly for this offense means that a person acts with an awareness that his conduct is reasonably certain to cause the death of the alleged victim. The requirement of knowingly is also established if it is shown the defendant acted intentionally, and intentionally for this offense has been defined for you above under counts 1 and 2. The distinction between voluntary manslaughter, the next lesser included offense, and second-degree murder is that voluntary manslaughter requires that the killing result from a state of passion produced by adequate provocation from the alleged victim sufficient to lead a reasonable person to act in an irrational manner. And the next is voluntary manslaughter. If you have a reasonable doubt as to the defendant's guilt of second-degree murder, a lesser included offense, then your verdict must be not guilty as to that offense or offenses, and then you shall proceed to determine his guilt or innocence of voluntary manslaughter, a lesser included offense. Any person who commits voluntary manslaughter is guilty of a crime. For you to find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must have proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following essential elements. 1, the defendant unlawfully killed the alleged victim. Again, counts 1 and 4, that would be Joel M. Guy Sr., and counts 2, 3, and 5 would be Lisa Guy. And 2, that the defendant acted intentionally or knowingly. And 3, that the killing resulted from a state of passion produced by adequate provocation from the alleged victim sufficient to lead a reasonable person to act in an irrational manner. Knowingly and intentionally for this offense have been defined for you above. Reckless homicide. If you have a reasonable doubt as to the defendant's guilt of voluntary manslaughter, a lesser included offense, then your verdict must be not guilty as to that offense or offenses, and then you shall proceed to determine his guilt or innocence of reckless homicide, a lesser included offense. Any person who commits the offense of reckless homicide is guilty of a crime. For you to find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must have proven, beyond a reasonable doubt, the existence of the following essential elements. 1, the defendant killed the alleged victim. Again, counts 1 and 4 would be Joel M. Guy Sr., counts 2, 3, and 5 would be Lisa Guy. And 2, that the defendant acted recklessly. Recklessly for this.
Get your votes in, folks. I'm asking right now. I'm going to let that determine where we're going here. Should I skip the jury instructions? We still have probably like 30 minutes of those left. I've got a fuck yeah at 83%, a hell no at 17% after 18 votes. Get in there and get your vote in. We'll give you a minute to do it.
Offense means that a person acts recklessly when the person is aware of, but consciously disregards, a substantial and unjustifiable risk that the alleged victim will be killed. The risk must be of such a nature and degree that its disregard constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary person would exercise under all the circumstances as viewed from the accused person's standpoint. The requirement of recklessly is also established if it is shown the defendant acted intentionally or knowingly. Intentionally and knowingly have been defined for you above.
Look like we're skipping it, folks.
Lastly is criminally negligent homicide. If you have a reasonable doubt as to the defendant's guilt of reckless homicide, a lesser included offense, then your verdict must be not guilty as to that offense or offenses, and then you shall proceed to determine his guilt or innocence of criminally negligent homicide, a lesser included offense. Any person who commits...
All right, we're moving on. We're going to skip past the jury instructions for obvious reasons. What number was that? I can find it down here. We are going into a verdict, okay? So I guess this is after 4 days. This is a 6-minute video here. We're going to go into some impact statements. Guys, again, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate the shit out of it. It's been an insane murder church this morning. Let's get the verdict going here. 4 days.
You can remain seated, folks. You ready, Christy? All right, welcome back, everyone. I've been told the jury has reached a verdict. I have no idea what it is. What we will do is we'll bring the jurors in. Juror number 1 is our foreperson. I'm going to have her switch seats with juror number 3, so she'll be near the microphone to make the announcement. I will have the jurors tender the verdict forms to me. I'm going to review those before they're announced just to make sure that they have been completed and signed, and then I'll return those to our foreperson for publication. Now, I just want to prepare everybody. Everybody's behaved really well during this very difficult trial, and I appreciate that. And I don't expect there's going to be any displays of emotion from anybody. The only reason I bring it up is because you actually have to take a step to affirmatively make yourself not have that reaction. It's a powerful thing when we receive a verdict. And if you're not thinking consciously about, I need to make sure I don't display
There's a child in there. I mean, I'm guessing that's part of the family, but geez.
Emotion, then it's just natural that you're going to do that. And as I said, I have no idea what the verdict's going to be. Some folks may be happy with it. Some folks may be disappointed in it. I don't really know, but this jury has worked hard. They've made a lot of sacrifices over the last really week and a half to be here in this situation. And so I just want to make sure that we respect them. Whatever the verdict is, everybody just needs to remain calm and not have any outward displays of emotion. There will be an appropriate time for that to happen because I know it's just natural. And so everybody's behaved really well. The only reason I bring it up again is just so you prepare yourself because it's an awesome thing to receive a verdict. Is the state ready to receive the verdict? The defense ready? Yes. All right, please bring our jury in. Folks, please rise for our jury.
Here we go. This has been a trial here at Publicly Buzzed. Season 3. Joel Michael Guy Jr. Parents Dismemberment Trial. One of the craziest we've done, and again, that's saying something after Season 1, was the Jeffrey Dahmer Insanity Trial.
All right, everyone, you may be seated. Does the state waive the call, jury? Defense waive the call? Welcome back, folks. Madam Foreperson, I understand the jury has reached unanimous verdict in all 7 counts. Is that correct? If you please hand the book to Officer Coker, let me take a quick look at that, and then I'll return it to you.
That's what I was saying earlier, Drew. I was like, did these people just love the food? Like, what's going on here? It's awesome.
All right, let the record reflect the court sees that all 7 verdict forms have been completed and signed by our foreperson. Officer Coe, if you'd please return that to our foreperson.
Hulk Hogan was reading the verdict.
And Madam Foreperson, I'm going to ask if you please stand up, and I'm asking you to take a couple steps to your left so you're near the microphone. And I'm going to have you publish the jury's findings. I'd like you to turn to the verdict form for the first count. And if you please announce your findings by reading the sentence, we, the jury, find the defendant, and then announce your findings.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Joel Michael Guy, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder of Joel Guy Sr.
Count number 2, please.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Joel Michael Guy, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder of Lisa Guy.
Count number 3.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Joel Michael Guy, guilty of first-degree felony murder of Lisa Guy.
Count number 4.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Joel Michael Guy, guilty of first-degree felony murder of Joel Guy Sr.
Count number 5.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Joel Michael Guy, guilty of felony murder of Lisa Guy.
Count number 6.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Joel Michael Guy, guilty of abuse of a corpse of Joel Guy Sr.
And count number 7.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Joel Michael Guy, guilty of abuse of a corpse of Lisa Guy.
Thank you, Madam Foreperson. If you please return that to Officer Coker for the record, you may have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if that's your individual verdict as to each count, please signify by raising your right hand. All right, let the record reflect the court sees all 12 hands. Does either side wish any further polling? All right, folks, that concludes your service to this community. In this case, I'm very appreciative of the sacrifices that each one of you have made by being here, really going back to last week. I know this has been a difficult trial for you, but thank you so much for your service to our community and for making our constitutions work. I have one bit of legal issues I have to address with the attorneys, but I would like to thank each of you with a certificate of appreciation for your service. So if you don't mind waiting for me for just a couple more minutes, at this time you are discharged. Please go with the officers. I'll see you in the jury room.
Oh, wow. There's an appeal of unlawfully entering his home?
All right, Mr. Guy, if you remain standing, anyone else, you may have a seat. Joel Michael Guy and docket number 110145, after being tried by a jury of peers and found guilty of all 7 counts, the court does enter those findings. I exercise my role as a 13th.
Enter those findings that you fucked around and found out.
As well, and do find that the weight of the evidence supports the jury's findings. You can have a seat now, sir. All right, folks, by operation of law, the court is required to pronounce the sentence in the first-degree murder counts, and I believe we're going to have some victim impact today. Is that correct, Joe?
Please, the family would like a few minutes before to collect their thoughts before we do that, if that's okay.
I do need to take a recess anyway to discharge the jury and give them some instructions about the media contact, but I will do that. We can come back, we will hear victim impact testimony. After that, I will pronounce sentence on the first-degree murder counts. We will need to have a separate sentencing hearing to determine consecutive versus concurrent, and also determine the appropriate sentence in counts 6 and 7, abuse of a corpse. So we'll take is 10 minutes enough time? All right, we'll take a 10-minute recess and come back and begin with victim impact.
All right, how long is victim impact going to go, guys? 18 minutes on victim impact. So let's keep rolling here, guys. Again, thanks everyone for being here. This one may get emotional, you know, have tissues on standby. This whole thing has been pretty freaking traumatic. I couldn't imagine being a family member in it. So yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out. Appreciate it.
Your Honor, I would just add for the record, we object to doing this at this time. We're not prepared for the victim impact statement. Additionally,
you're not prepared. When?
Narrowly tailored to just personal attacks on Mr. Guy and just the impact of the crime on the victim.
Yes, sir.
I admonish all of the family.
Fuck you, Joel Guy.
To you, and it is their opportunity to tell you the effect the crime had on them, and it is not an appropriate thing to disparage the defendant. So.
All right. Thank you, Joe. There is no opportunity for direct or cross-examination on victim impact, so there's really no response that the defense would have. They'll have an opportunity to reply to that during the sentencing hearing that we'll have at a later date. So I don't think the defendant would be prejudiced by hearing victim impact testimony this time. So I'm going to overrule your objection. But I do direct the family. The purpose of victim impact testimony is to assist the court in sentencing by hearing from the victims on how this has impacted you and your family. So I would ask you to direct your comments toward me in that particular area. All right, John, if you please call your first person. Sir, if you just begin by stating your name, your relationship to the victims, then tell me how this impacted you.
Yes, sir. My name's Alvin Madera Jr. I'm the oldest brother of Lisa Guy
Oh, yeah, I've got a brother.
and brother-in-law of Joe Guy.
No way I could be there.
Proceed? It's with heavy heart and tormented spirit that I make the statement to the members of this court. I'm many things. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, and I'm a son. I've been blessed to see many wonderful things on this earth. I watched my stepson grow to become a man. I've been there for my grandchildren. I watched them grow to become little people. Your parents cannot do these things, Joe Michael, because of the crime you've committed. My sister Lisa Guy was truly one of the most loving, caring, and forgiving people on the face of this earth. Her husband, my brother-in-law, Joe Guy Sr., was honestly one of the most down-to-earth, hard-working, and kind people I ever met. They were the type of people who would help anyone out whenever they could. My sister was the type of person who loved deeply. She loved the family, she loved her mother, she loved her father, her sister, and I. Her husband, she loved her children and stepchildren. She loved the grandchildren. Her love was taken. It was taken from this world by murder. My sister and brother-in-law loved family. They enjoyed holidays. Some of my favorite memories I have of her and him were from holidays. We could sit around and tell fun and interesting stories. My brother-in-law was an amazing storyteller, and our family holidays will never be the same without them there. Lisa and Joe were murdered. They were butchered. Their bodies were desecrated. Their spirits were forever harmed. The loss of my family members will forever be eternal. I stand for them in their statement. Days after hearing of Joe and Lisa's murder, my mother was hospitalized. She never exited the hospital. The loss of your child was difficult for her, one that I hope I never have to endure. But to find out your daughter was murdered by your own grandchild was heartbreaking. Literally, she could not even attend the funeral. She was unable to say her final prayers. She was Catholic. She was unable to take communion at her daughter's funeral. Excuse me. The next day after we buried Joel and Lisa, my mother died. They fought to bring her back. She truly died of a broken heart. There were 3 deaths on Joe Michael Guy Jr.'s hands. My grandchildren lost their great-grandmother. My stepson lost his grandmother. And I lost my mother. On that day, I lost my family. My mother is gone. My sister is gone. The world has forever changed. The impact of this crime is notorious. My grandchildren's grandchildren will be able to read about this horrible, disgusting crime. We will never, ever be the same. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
Robin White.
I know your name, but just for the record, if you'd state it again and your relationship to the
Robin White, and Joel Sr. was my brother. Lisa was like my sister. And I waited a long time for this, 4 years now. Took away my brother and my sister Lisa, the 2 precious people he took from my family and me. It was a heartless and selfish thing. I will never get to see or talk to him or be a part of my brother and my sister's life no more. The night I heard about this, I knew who done it, because in my heart I did. And Mike and Lisa, I called him my brother Mike. I didn't call him Joel. He was so fun, and Lisa, I've done a lot with him. We was together a lot, and I miss that. Now that's gone. I'll never get that back. And he was so proud to have his grandchildren, and they miss their papa. He won't get to watch them grow up, him or Lisa, either one now. And their daughters, they won't get to see their father and the woman that they looked up to, a mom, ever again. And I'll never have my brother with me again. But justice has prevailed today, and I am so thankful for that. I had a lot of stuff wrote, but I ain't going to say all of it, so I just want to thank everybody here for what they've done, the job they've done, and you, Your Honor, thank you, and to everybody here. I appreciate it, and I better just shut up now and go home back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. White. I'm sorry for your loss.
Shanda's Fink.
If you could just say your name in relationship to the loss, please.
Candace Fink. Joel Guy was my dad, and Lisa was my stepmom. They, I don't have a statement ready, so I'm just speaking from the heart. But I want to first of all, just so I don't forget, say thank you to all law enforcement and the lawyers, the court, the jury, everyone that had to see all this. And I'm very sorry that this evil's had to come into their life too. And that I will be praying for all of them as I do for my family as well. Dad and Lisa were wonderful. They were larger than life. They were so happy and such really good people. And they loved him. They loved him so much. They loved all of us. And for anyone to do what he did, I don't understand it. He has taken something from myself, from my children, his Dad and Lisa's grandchildren, my husband, everyone in our family. He has taken something from us that we'll never get back. We will. I pray that we can move on from this and that we can put this behind us. I pray that my children are not going to be scarred for life from this. The tears that's come from them, the nightmares. I'm so thankful for today. I'm thankful that this day is done. And I'm so thankful that the jury decided guilty on all counts. And I'm thankful for you giving me the opportunity to speak today. Thanks. Thanks.
Emotionless, dude.
Angela?
Sitting there fucking emotionless.
Right.
And if you begin by stating your name and your relationship.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Angela Crane, and Joel and Lisa Guy were my parents. I wasn't prepared to speak today. It's like for 4 years, I felt like I've pushed it down, like it's not actually happening. but it's real. And they're gone. And Dad was my best friend. And I'll never get to hear his laugh again. Or his just incredible hugs. I'll never get to sit and banter with him and hear the same stories we've all heard over and over, but they're still just as hilarious because Dad was such a storyteller. I'll never get to go fishing with him or what he likes to say, have a cocktail. Or it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I was robbed of having my father walk me down the aisle. And Lisa, my last mother on earth, was taken away. She was the most loving and giving person I've ever met. She would give the shirt off her back to anyone, the last dime to anyone. She was my best friend too. They were both robbed of seeing their grandchildren, their handsome boys, grow up and turn into incredible men. And for them to have to go through this tragedy so young is just, it's heartbreaking. I still have Dad on speed dial. Like, it hurts me every day not to be able to speak to him. The rest of my life is not going to be the same for any of us. And I know there's a void that will not be replaced until that beautiful day when we meet again. Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm sorry. Ms. Tyler, if you'd begin by stating your name and your relationship, please.
Yes, my name is Michelle Tyler, and my relationship is I am Joel and Lisa's daughter. I'm gonna have to put this mask on because that mask smothers me.
That's fine.
That's all right. First, I would like to say that I don't know if you all have a hero, but I have.
Ms. Tyler, I'm going to give you permission to take the screen off. There's nobody within 6 feet.
Thank you.
I'm just having a hard time hearing you. I think it's appropriate to make an exception in this case. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know if you all have a hero, but I have heroes, and it's such an awful situation to even have to have heroes, but I thank all of you all sitting here and everyone back there that are still here for 5 days and 7 days, and you've been here every time. Every single one of you are my hero. As a little girl, I watched how much Lisa loved Joel Michael. I wanted to be that mom. Joel Michael was Lisa's entire world. Most girls dream of weddings, I think. I don't know. But I dreamed of being Lisa with a picture-perfect family, with the dad coming home at 5 and me having dinner. I wanted to love as strong as Lisa loved. The dinner at Dad's and Lisa's home included meat, which was so different. We would stay there in the summer, but we were at my dad lived like 6 hours or hours away, and so we stayed at my mom's. Included meat, which was so different at my house where we grew up poor, and it was just pasta. So when we went to that house, it was like meat and candy, and they provided a loving and caring home with all the extra stuff. Some of this I can't read that sentence either. My dreams were to spend the next 40 years at Thanksgiving and Christmas laughing with my parents. My dreams were to move Lisa and Dad into my home. I would even banter with them about them moving into my home when they were old, to model for my kids how to take care of your parents in the last days, because I'm moving in with my kids when I get old. But I wanted them to see that, like I got to see my mom take care of her parents. I got to see my mom stand by her parents' bed when they died, and I wanted that. My dream was to hold my mom's, Lisa's hand as she took her last breath. My dream was to hold my dad's hand as he took his last breath. People take moments like that for granted, but I wanted those moments with my whole soul. Not only that, my kid's childhood was taken away. I am angry for my dreams being destroyed. But I'm not the only one that's been affected. This has impacted my kids, and for that I will never be able to forgive. I rest easy knowing that God is okay with my choice not to forgive someone that has murdered my parents. I had to spend the last 4 years saving my kids' soul, their spirits, and their hearts. I have spent the last 4 years cleaning up a mess. No one will ever know what it's like to be a child having to hear that your grandmother's head was cooking in a pot because the person that did it had the perfect childhood. He, especially not a man with that childhood. And on a super selfish note, you will never know, not meaning you, but meaning what it is like to have to tell your children that their grandparents have been chopped up and put in acid. Can my kids ever trust again? Would I ever really be able to trust again? I was always so proud of Lisa, and I told everyone that she was the best stay-at-home mom. I mourn for my dad, and know I keep talking about Lisa. I mourn terribly for my dad, I do. But I grieve and rage for Lisa. I rage for her from the mother's point of view. I cry for her because I wonder if when she realized the love of her life, the only son she had, the child that she gave her entire life to, was about to murder her. I have to edit that. Stop right there. I wonder if at that moment when her heart was broken, did she even fight? Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
Anyone else? There'll be an additional time for victim impact statement should anyone choose to make it when we come back for entry of judgment. Does anybody else need to address the court today? All right, thank you, folks. So I do receive the victim impact testimony from the family. As a judge, I'm required to make sentences based upon the law and the evidence in the case. Your emotion is completely understandable, and your pain is completely understandable. As a judge, that cannot have any influence on the decision that I make. But I'm also a human being, so I want you to know that you do have my sympathy. I know this has been very difficult. If I weren't the judge and I were a friend, I would spend a lot of time sitting down and talk to you, but I am the judge, so it would be inappropriate for me to be your counselor. The one thing I will say to the family is several of you have expressed how your faith has played a role in how you're dealing with this. So in your faith tradition, you can read in Romans 5, where Scripture says, where sin did abound, grace did much more abound. And so it's my prayer to you that you will find God's abounding grace to help you get through this. But you do have my sympathy. At this point, though, that sympathy has to end, and I have to make legal determinations. So I hope you understand when I pronounce sentence in this case, it's not a value judgment on the life of Joel and Lisa Guy. It's a judgment based upon the facts of this case in the law. All right. So we do need to set a sentencing date before we enter the sentences on the first-degree murder case. We need to get a pre-sentence investigation report conducted. That takes about 45 days. Today is October 2nd. So that would put us somewhere in the neighborhood of November 13th or the 19th. I guess if the defense will weigh the 45 days, I would suggest probably November 19th.
Yeah, this judge is amazing. I like this judge a lot, man.
General, is that okay for the state?
Actually has a heart, shows some
so
compassion.
we'll set sentencing date for November 19th. Since we do have verdicts on first-degree murder, the court is required by law to go ahead and enter those sentences, or at least pronounce those sentences. I won't be able to enter judgment because we have to know if there will be consecutive sentences in this case, and we'll also need to pronounce the sentence on the abuse of a corpse on the November 19th day. But at this time, Mr. Guy, I'm going to ask you to please stand. Joel Michael Guy and docket number 110145, after being tried by a jury of peers, the first degree premeditated murder of Joel Michael Guy, the court now sentenced you to life in prison in the Tennessee Department of Corrections. Count number 2, after being found guilty by a jury of peers of the first degree premeditated murder of Lisa Guy, I now enter sentence of life in prison in the Tennessee Department of Corrections. Count number 3 is a first degree felony murder during the perpetration of first degree premeditated murder of Lisa Guy. The court now sentences you to life in prison in that count to merge into count number 2. Count number 4 is the first degree felony murder during the perpetration of theft of Joel Guy Sr. The court sentences you to life in prison in Tennessee Department of Corrections. That will merge into count number 1. Count number 5 is the first degree felony murder during the perpetration of theft of Lisa Guy. The court sentences you to life in prison. That will merge with count number 2. That will be the court sentence. The court stands adjourned.
Boom.
I'm telling you like it is, baby. This is gun country.
All of our jurors are here.
And back to the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it through season 3 of Murder Church. Holy shit. What a crazy one. What a wild one. That was very emotional there at the end. Oh, yeah, I like that judge a lot. That judge was fucking awesome, man. That was a wild case that we saw there that honestly should have not even made it that far. I mean, wild. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out this morning. I appreciate it. Insane morning. Amazing morning. It's been a good morning on both here, YouTube and X. Got over 50 people hanging out here. Appreciate it, guys. As you head out the door, please hit that like. Help us out. Love you guys so much for just coming through, hanging and banging. I appreciate the shit out of that. Over on X, oh shit, over on Twitter, almost hit 900, man. Steady. That's fucking awesome. That's cool as hell. Anybody over there, make sure you stick with us this week because we're going to be finding a new trial for season 4, and that will be voted on by you, the public. We'll do some kind of tournament on Feral Friday Live, 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube this week, me and Dan, and we'll figure out what the hell we're going to be doing for next Sunday. Starting out, baby. Murder Church Season 4, going to be coming in full effect. Thank you guys so fucking much. I appreciate it. Viv came through there right at the very end and gave $10, baby. Thank you, Viv, so fucking much. I appreciate the shit out of that. Everybody that came through, seriously, today's been great. Everybody, I hope you have a great Sunday. Hope you have a good week. We're going to go into this thing and kick its ass per the usual. I know we're going to have a wild week with Jay and Bob, and I mean, I'm probably going to be doing some coverage as well. The Karen Reed trial starts tomorrow. Okay, it's going to be fucking crazy. So, hell yeah, everybody coming through. And hopefully you stick around with Publicly Buzzed if you're new and you're checking us out this morning. I know a lot of new eyes got on Murder Church and Publicly Buzzed, and I appreciate the shit out of that. Appreciate Kaylin for sharing that, Jay for sharing that. Let's fucking go, baby. PB to 10K here on YouTube. Let's keep growing, keep going. And yeah, again, hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you guys. Love you. Boom.